Amanda Land, Amanda Land, Amanda Land.
The latest drop at Amanda Land Exports may look like it's a game, but reminds us that fascism certainly is not. Get your fascists are not your friends, tees, stickers, and more at AmandaLandExports.com.
What up? We back! 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 What are y'all doing? Oh my gosh, we're back! Rolando, I got you. I got you. I got you. We're back! Yes! Welcome! Welcome, welcome to Views from Amanda Land, your news and truths by any joke necessary. Yeah, we did it. We took a month off and then we came back. Welcome back to everybody who is joining us. I don't know why you're calling it chaotic energy, Captain Jess. It's not chaotic at all, actually. But welcome to everybody here. Thank you for coming back. And you know, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got great guests today. Looking forward to our guests, Greg Stoker and Jeffrey Sachs. I want to let y'all know and remind you that you can get your fascists are not your friends pins, as well as t-shirts, stickers, and more right now, right freaking now at AmandaLandExports.com. Okay? So go to AmandaLandExports.com and get your fascists are not your friends. Oh my God, what did I just do? Oh. It's like, what have I done? Yeah. Get your fascists are not your friends pin. And you can get your fascists are not your friends t-shirts as well. They are available at AmandaLandExports.com. We're here. We're still here. And we've got so much going on. And I used to do the show 3 days a week. And now I'll be doing it 1 day a week, but for much longer. What we will also be doing is having an after show convo for my Patreon subscribers. It's $5 a month to subscribe to Patreon. And the after show convo will give you all the opportunity to talk to me and to each other about what we've talked about on the show. So hopefully you will join us for that. That happens directly after the episode. And want to also let you know that we're starting a new thing called the bonus question. So at the end of each episode, I will post the bonus question, and I'd love to see you all respond in the chat. Sorry, not in the chat, in the comments after the show with your answers to the bonus question. Now, I knew y'all was not going to be on top of things with the assignment, but shout to everybody who was, shout to everybody who was on top of things with turning in the assignment, okay? Shout out to everybody who turned in the assignment, but I knew that I was going to have to extend it. I knew it. So at the end of the show, I will post the assignment and we will present them next week. Okay? We'll present them next week. We've got our mods in the chat, Rolando, Sandy, and Elijah. If you're new here, understand that if you talk sideways, they will remove you from the chat. That little wrench they got there, they use it. This is not like other places that will keep trolls in the chat because they're so desiring of the algorithm and of the money that comes along with it. Nope, we're not doing that. So that's how that's going to go. Okay. Now, if you don't know who Jeffrey Sachs is, who is going to be joining us later as our Level Us Up guest, here's a little clip of the type of candor you can expect.
Regard the United States as the most lawless and dangerous country in the world by far. You cannot believe how much misinformation we get every single day. Because I have advised more than 100 governments around the world, I have seen things with my own eyes. I've seen US CIA coups with my own eyes. Governments lie, but superpowers make super lies.
Okay. So I'm looking forward to us getting to talk to Jeffrey Sachs. So please get your questions ready now. Get your questions ready now. And remember that all questions will need to be addressed to Professor Sachs. All right? Don't be disrespectful in here. Okay? I want my class to be respectful of our guests. Okay? So let's make sure that we are on top of things. We also got Greg Stoker joining us at 10:30 for 60-second headlines. And it's time. We gotta get things going. We gotta find out who's in here. Hey. Oh. Come on. We're here. Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop it and tell me where you're watching from. We're here on a Wednesday, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Come on, y'all. Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. All right, we got Brooklyn, Arlington, Texas, National City, California, Philadelphia, Blackwood, New Jersey, Richmond, Virginia, Washington Heights, Samuel from Sweden, Long Beach, California, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, DMV, Deltona, Florida, H-Town, Prague, Czech Republic, Foggy Bottom, North Carolina, Indianapolis, Naptown, Indiana, Manhattan, Compton, South Florida, Japan, Konnichiwa! Hey! Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Bermuda, I think that's a newbie. British Columbia, Canada, we got St. Louis, Hamid, what's up? We got Brandon McGrath in H-Town, Aurora, Colorado, Brevard, Florida, Chicago, Lima, Peru, the Netherlands. What else? We got Tampa, Florida. We got Chelsea, New York City. We got Oklahoma City, Detroit. Shout out to the 313, Charleston, South Carolina, Tennessee, Dayton, Ohio, Bandera, Texas, Augusta, Georgia, Lesotho. That's a new one. Hey, Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Newport, Rhode Island, Watley, Alabama is back. Riverside, California, India. Say word. London, UK. Jersey is representing. Rhode Island. Amanda Lander's here to learn. Thank you for telling me where you're watching from. Yeah. Woo! We have some places to add to our map, y'all. I love it. If you are watching on Instagram, come on over to YouTube, Amanda Seals TV, and join the chat and let us know you came from Instagram so we can give you a proper welcome. All right. So did we have Bermuda marked on the map? Okay, we did have Bermuda marked on the map, but Casablanca, Morocco? Oh my God. I don't think we have Morocco marked on the map, you all. I don't think we have Morocco marked on the map. Remember to say hello to the people in here coming from the Instagram, okay? From the Instagram. All right. So we have Morocco. So we actually, no, we did not have Morocco. Oh my God! All right. We also had India. Where in India are you? Because we have India on here, but India is massive. So we got to make sure that we are showing everything. Andrietta, you are not in Mauritius. Andrietta, are you in Mauritius? Is somebody watching from Mauritius? Montpellier! Someone said, this is way better than Instagram. You a lion. Rotterdam, Netherlands. All right, wait, where was the one we forgot? Where was the one that we had that was new? We had Morocco, Lesotho. Right here. Boom. In the middle of South Africa is the country of Lesotho. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so nice to see you guys and to see so many of our new folks, but also so many of our Amanda Landers. Okay, you are in Uttarakhand, India. Uttarakhand, India. Is that north? Is that south? Is that east? Is that west? Is that central India? Where is it? Ooh, Rome. We didn't have no Italy on here, y'all. We got Rome. Wow. Buongiorno. Buongiorno. Yeah, we'll be talking about Dubai today, actually. We'll be talking about the UAE today. Okay. Adrian said the names are different. Oh my gosh. Andrietta is watching from Mauritius. I am jealous, okay? I am so jealous that you are in Mauritius. I can never remember where Mauritius is. It's off of, okay, yes, it's off of Madagascar. All right. Woo! Look at us. Look at us. I love us so much. I do. I love us. So welcome to Amanda Land. If you're just joining us, you are in for a treat because this show is our first show back. And I'll be sitting here for a while. So here's some of the things we'll be talking about over the course of the show today. We're going to get into a word of the day. Then we're going to get into our bonus question tease. Then we have Greg Stoker, who'll be joining us to talk about the Nebraska representative who was flooded with booze at his town hall. We're also going to talk about the House Oversight Committee that is subpoenaing the Epstein files. And then we're also going to talk about what else did I have here? Oh, Stoker believes that Stoker thinks they're stoking a war on U.S. soil, and so we're going to get into that, all right? Then we are going to have a How Black Do You Feel Today? And then we're going to be joined by Jeffrey Sachs. Our Black Current News will discuss Sudan, also Rwanda, also Kamala, as in Harris, all right? And then we're going to close the show with our critical thinking exercise, which is going to be talking about gerrymandering and voting rights. So we've got all of that to discuss over the next about 2.5, 3 hours. And I'm going to be here with you all. And I'm really excited to get this going and to be doing this with you all and really making it our business to understand the business of the world. It's not enough for us to just be American aware. We need to be globally aware. Okay? And that's what is going down. Now, just so y'all know, you all always talk about how my vocabulary is nuts, right? And I realized that's because I found 2 more sets of vocabulary flashcards that I had made in my house when I was home visiting my mom. I found, first of all, don't we love this Sanrio Monkichi pencil case? How much do we love this? How much do we love this? I found a whole set in here, a whole set. And in this Caribbean pencil case, I found another set of flashcards. Yes, your girl was really about it. Oh my God, you know what? These are, y'all, these are flashcards for French. Look, scissor, ciseaux. Hot, chaud. Let's see. Butter, beurre. Wow, your girl was trying to get multilingual out here. Yes, ooh la la. Let me tell you, Adrian, Staples loved me back in the day with index cards. I still love an index card. I love me an index card. So let's take a look at our word of the day. Our word of the day today is winsome. The word is winsome. Winsome is an adjective meaning charming and attractive. Charming and attractive. I was very irritated to see a video of an IDF soldier sitting on the beach in Miami who was being approached about being an IDF soldier, because not only was I irritated that he was an IDF soldier, but also that he was very winsome outwardly. Inwardly, he's the devil, but outwardly, he was winsome, and that annoys me. In my mind, they should all look terrible. Can anyone use winsome in a word, in a sentence? Can anyone use winsome in a sentence? All right. Diana says people want their politicians more winsome than wise. True. Ain't that the truth? I'm already ahead of you, State Girl. I'm already ahead of you on the flashcard game. I'm already ahead of you. I'm there, girl. I'm there. All right. Kismet J says Winsome Sears is the worst Black Republican candidate in Virginia. I don't know him, but I'm going to take your word for it. Okay. I'm going to take your word for it. Ellie Jackson 0910 says the winsome landscape of our planet is being destroyed. You are correct. Bria Welch 4497 says the gentle lady had the most winsome smile in the world. Speaking of winsome gentle ladies, if you guys have not seen the show Sanditon on Masterpiece Theater, it gives you an opportunity to donate to PBS, because you have to have like PBS Plus or something like that in order to watch it. But it's really delightful, and it has a Black cast member. It has a lot of actual conversations about abolition. It's really fabulous. It really is. All right, let's go to the next one. Five Fights. Why am I still talking with this accent? Okay, Five Fights says, I don't think Gavin Newsom would be so popular if he didn't seem so winsome. Gavin Newsom is very much giving grown-up frat boy fineness. Like, that's his energy. His energy is grown-up frat boy fineness. I feel like, he's tall. He wears a dock slider. He has a strong jaw. So I think, like, that's really what's going on there. Speaking of which, Raul Rivera keeps it a buck and says Obama is held high in people's eyes because he is winsome. Charming and attractive. Listen, Raul said it. I didn't. All right. Let's get to our last one. How are we going to end it? How are we going to end our word of the day? Who's gonna have the one? Suquad said, I cannot stand a winsome F-boy at a bodega. I know that life, and I understand it, and I lived it for quite some time. Don't forget, we will be having our bonus question announcement at the end of the show, so don't go anywhere so that you can make sure you are here to hear what the bonus question is so that you can answer it in the comments. But just because I love the bonus question intro, I'm going to play it right here.
Bonus question. Bonus question. Bonus question. Bonus question.
It's lit. It's lit. Okay. So the bonus question is going to be at the end of the show, and you guys can chime in and get in these comments and get this little algo popping. It's amazing how on YouTube, if you like take a break for like literally a month, they're like, nothing. You got nothing. You like, but what about everything else I had posted though? None of that. All right. Okay. So we're about to get into our Level Us Up guest. We've seen him on the internets. as much as I despise, let me actually throw something on that. As much as I despise Meta and the algorithm, it is what brought me to this white man. So today we'll be joined by Mr. Stoker, Mr. Greg Stoker. Stoker is an activist. Stoker is a vet. Stoker, by the way, actually, no, I'm gonna tell him to his face when I bring him up, because I had to get in his comments today to gather somebody about him, because somebody was talking a little too loose, and I was like, cut it out. All right, let's get into our Level Us Up guest of the day, Amanda Land. Stoker.
Hey, what's up?
You're surprised that you're here.
No, I'm trying to. I did a pep talk in the mirror. I am not a morning person, but we're gonna try to make it happen.
When you say you're not a morning person, how does it affect you?
Well,
your brain isn't like sharp, or you're just like,
yeah.
I'm angry at the world.
Yeah, well, mostly angry at the world. You were talking about Meta. I need to just not check it until like I've gone to the gym, chilled for a bit, probably, be like, do not check or respond to anything until like 10 a.m. or something.
I started doing a thing where I have set my phone to wake me up to music. Mm-hmm. So before I see anything in the world, I hear good vibes.
Okay.
I see, I just, the world I enter into is already good vibes. So that once I get to the phone, I've already heard,
something winsome.
Correct. Something winsome. I had to go in your comments today because somebody was like, Greg, it's your turn. If Chris Smalls went on the flotilla, you got to get on the flotilla. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you went to war. So I'm like, no, he doesn't need to go on a flotilla. Also, you get arrested all the time.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite one was during Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing in the Senate. It was the first time I crowd surfed since I went to like a metal show, in my 20s. So
I really appreciated that one as well. I was like, this is not a small man. Like you're like 6'4" something of the year.
I'm of the size where flying is an extra $100 because you got to get the exit row. So.
That is very telling. So I was like, wow, they were very committed to getting this man out of there because they used up 4 people of their manpower to get you out of there. So
taxpayer dollars hard at work.
Hard at work. Well, let's get into this. Let's speak about taxpayer dollars because Nebraska, this is a sentence I never thought I'd say. Nebraska is upset. Okay, y'all. Nebraska is not happy. Let's see one of the women who spoke at Representative Mike Flood's recent tour date.
My question is fiscal. With 450 million FEMA dollars being reallocated to open Alligator Alcatraz and 600 million taxpayer FEMA dollars being used to now open more concentration camps and ICE burning through $8.4 million a day to illegally detain people, how much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
She was pissed.
Words that is a diatribe I'd never thought to hear come out of a state like Nebraska.
Right? And wait, let me show you this shirt that someone had on because y'all, I was so impressed with this shirt that I need to figure out where it is so I can get it. Go fact yourself. Look at these old white people, the whites on the right are ready to fight. So what are your thoughts about this?
Okay, well, I've been monitoring, because I'm on the Nazi platform, which we used to call Twitter. Now it's like
you
Central.
Still stay there. They hacked me one time. Somebody hacked me. And I just never went back.
Well, I'm still on Twitter because it's how like a lot of journalists communicate and get in touch with each other. So it's a work thing. I work part-time for Mint Press News, and so I exist on Twitter. But it does get me to it gives me some insight into the propaganda machine that is MAGA, like the MAGA core, like the libs of TikTok account, and Gunther Eagleman, people that hopefully none of you guys know about because they're absolute POS. Yeah. Look, it'll only make you dumber, so don't read their stuff. But it shows the disconnect between these kind of like elite propagandists in MAGA world, and like that exists also not just on X, but on Truth Social, TikTok, and stuff, and how their message is actually really disconnected from what people are saying on the ground.
And how is it disconnected?
Well, it's disconnected.
What are they saying?
Okay. Here's my favorite thing now. Basically what we're seeing, and I think we're going to talk about this later when we get into the Epstein files, but what they're trying to do is play into the distraction of, Pam Bondi, issuing a indictment for a grand jury on like Obama and Hillary Clinton from last election, be like, it's finally going to happen. No, it's not. Or, they're just like towing the party line for misdirection. Like they'll post things like, who's even still talking about the Epstein case? And you will see the most unhinged reframing, and it happens with all these accounts like instantaneously. It's like they send up the Nazi bat symbol, and they'll say like, the Democrats asking for the Epstein file, they're a bunch of perverts who just are obsessed with child porn. It's like, bro, what have you guys been talking about for the past 8 years? And so, there's a disconnect between the propaganda apparatus and the ecosystem that includes like Steve Bannon and people like that, and people on the ground, the people of Nebraska, who are saying crazy things like free healthcare, which first of all, I want to push back on because it's not free. You pay taxes. Okay.
Fair. Right. It's just not, you're just not paying on top of your taxes.
Right. And so, I think that there's a big push because I've been following like conservative circles for a long time. They're sick of the war in Ukraine. They're like, what the hell is NATO? Why do we need it? They, of course, don't have words like capitalism and imperialism and stuff, but they're like, why are we funding this? Same thing is happening over funding Gaza and Israel. Like the second they started bombing churches, or at least the second Fox News started reporting on it, like every grandmother was like,
whoa.
Yeah.
You can kill kids, but bombing churches, let's not get out of hand.
Yeah. So, all I would like to just bring up is there is a big disconnect. And, I think that town hall meeting was pretty indicative of what's happening in a grassroots movement across the country. Now, there will always be MAGA cultists who will toe the line no matter, he said it during his first election campaign, he could shoot someone in Midtown, right?
And nothing would happen.
Yeah, I mean, apparently he could like be creepy with children in Midtown too, and they'll be fine with that as well. So there will be like this contingent of diehard death cult cultists around him, but that's not indicative of the average necessarily Americans.
Well, listen to this because I was so surprised to hear the chanting.
Next slide talks about two big changes to the Medicaid program.
Come on.
One of those changes is that if you are able to work and you are able-bodied, you have to work. If you choose not to work, you do not get free health care. You do not get free health care. Okay. So here's a question. Do you think that people who are 28 years old that can work and refuse to work should get free health care?
Okay,
These are the other important parts of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
What are they saying? Tax
Next
the
slide, please.
rich. Tax the rich. Tax the rich.
No taxes on overtime.
Tax the rich. I was so surprised that these people were chanting tax the rich. Where did they even get that from? Is there going to be a class war?
I mean, hopefully. They're trying to frame it into a race war, but I don't think people are about that right now. Hopefully not. I mean, some people are.
About the race war of it all?
Yeah, I grew up in Texas, around in Arkansas, a bunch of people who would like that, but I don't think it's indicative of the entire base at all. And again, I would just like to remind people that it's not free healthcare Okay, that's you pay taxes for. I don't know how else to say it. It's not free. And the, one of the more problematic things is like if you're able-bodied and you choose not to work, even the children and the elderly yearn for the mines. It's just absolutely absurd, and I think people are.
Also, the person who's saying this is a part of, a system where they work fairly rarely. Like these government officials in Congress, they are in session and they're not, but they have healthcare all the time.
Well, they're actually in recess. They get an entire month off where they don't have to do anything.
And for the record, y'all, they spend most of their time fundraising. They're not even necessarily like in the streets with the people like, what do you need? No, they're calling like, hey, we need money. We need money. All right. So next story. I really thought about, do I even want to talk about this? But then it's like, yes, because I need your thoughts. Okay. So the House has subpoenaed these Epstein files, but it's interesting to me because it's the House Oversight Committee, which is run by Comer, who we know is going along with Trump at all times. So I'm not sure that I have that I'm figured out like what the thought process is here. So let me just read to y'all what the story is. The House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed the Department of Justice for records related to its investigation of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and his longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, is the daughter of a Mossad agent. The subpoena, one of 11 formally issued on Tuesday, calls for all documents and communications relating to or referring to Epstein and Maxwell, including information contained in their respective court cases, and this is supposed to be delivered by August 19th. In addition to the DOJ subpoena, Comer issued subpoenas seeking testimony from folks like President Bill Clinton and his wife, former Secretary of State Hill, as well as top law enforcement officials from previous administrations, including former FBI directors James Comey, Robert Mueller, and former Attorney General Merrick Garland and Bill Barr. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, they're just using it as a smokescreen to weaponize the political apparatus against Trump's erstwhile political enemies. He promised retribution.
Erstwhile. That was a good one. That was a good one, y'all. Erstwhile.
Okay. So this is to be expected. The subpoena is not about the Epstein files. You're never going to see them. Okay. But of course, one of the big talking points that a lot of the QAnon base started, who basically were the first people on this, was like Bill Clinton. He's like one of the main perpetrators. And, you see a lot of discourse like Dems don't want didn't release the Epstein files under Biden because Bill Clinton was on it. And I'm just like, dude, I would light Bill Clinton on fire just to watch Pete Hegseth struggle through a morning sober. Okay. I'm not the one flying Bill Clinton flags on my truck with Bill Clinton hats and Bill Clinton Bibles. But no, so this is a complete weaponization of the Epstein files to draw attention away from it. And this is a multilateral information operations approach. It's a classic mixed direction because also Pam Bondi has opened up this Russia investigation into Obama and Hillary Clinton from the past administration. The entire premise being that they ginned up a story about Russian interference in order to help Trump. And that broke late yesterday afternoon. So it's a grand jury indictment, but there's no legal teeth to it because the statute of limitations wears out. Expires in 5 years, and it's been 9 years since both of them were in office. So it's a political stunt that has no constitutional muster or legal teeth. And this is all just misdirection information operations. Because like Trump may be savvy in a sort of cult of personality way, but a lot of his people around him are kind of dumb, except the people associated with the Heritage Foundation, like Stephen Miller. No, they're actually really smart. They're just evil. They're just evil. So this is all like a manipulation campaign, but the narratives are unraveling. They're unraveling on a lot of fronts because Trump has proven to go back on everything he said. And, I brought this up during his campaign that he is like platformed as being an anti-war candidate. I was like, bro, you're the first person that started arming the Ukrainian military. Okay. You authorized the assassination of Iranian generals. You dropped more ordnance on Afghanistan than Obama did. I didn't think that was possible, but here we go. So he's gone back on his anti-war campaign, no ceasefire in Gaza. Of course, he wouldn't want that. He is a real estate developer. So is Steve Witkoff, his special envoy, real estate developer. So no, they're unraveling for the average American person, aside from his hardcore cult, because it's just like a lie. Nothing's happening. Like literally nothing's happening, except these smoke and mirrors, misdirections. And also the bread and circuses. Did you see next year there's going to be a UFC fight on the White House lawn? That was a story that was floated as well. So idiocracy's here.
The gold ballroom.
Yes, we're trying to make this into Versailles because that's really what we need.
I was reading I'm reading this book, Washington Bullets, by Vijay Prashad, and he talks about how when, he basically talks about how there was actually an effort to undermine monarchy by the monarchy of Saudi Arabia, I believe. And then once it got to France, it was Louis the 14th who was the one who reinstated, like, actually, you know what? We're big on the monarchy. We're big on the monarchy. And then, as we know, Louis the 16th is when the guillotine came out. And so there have been efforts in the past to get out of this trend of Versailles type behavior. And it never ends well. And now here we go with these guys, like, you know what? Let's bring that back. I don't think this will end well. I just don't know when it will end. But I'm fascinated by seeing the amount of mental gymnastics that is done to try to convince Americans that this is okay. And I guess my question to you would be, why if they're actively doing the fascism, why do they care what Americans think?
Well, they're starting to care less and less. They're not really even, in some cases, they're not really even trying to hide what they're doing. I think the Gaza Health Foundation, the American mercenaries on the ground in Gaza just go to show just how much they don't care. So the entire foundation is run by Johnny Moore. He's an uber rich Christian evangelical thought leader who was Trump's spiritual advisor and led prayer circles in the White House. And now he's a evangelical Zionist in charge of aid distribution, which means, erase the Palestinians.
Yes.
Get all the Jews back there so we can have the rapture.
Jesus return.
Yeah. Because, when you don't read the Bible. Anyways, so, they blatantly only hired special ops guys. I was just talking to Anthony Aguilar last night on Katie Halper's show. And we were talking about the recruiting process, and these are public records. They're not even trying to hide what they're doing. And I was in Ranger Regiment. He was a former Green Beret. No, neither one of us in the special operations community has experience with aid distribution or running a checkpoint. That's not really what you do in that community. And they're also, unmasking with ICE, the expansion of the insane police state. So yes, some of these weak ass narratives, I don't know if I can curse on your show, sorry, they're still trying for it. But, it was as the activist like Frank Zappa said, in the end, when the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they'll just take down the curtains, remove the furniture, and then you have, the state fascism. So they're going to abandon all of this and just be like, you don't like it? Well, here's an ICE tactical squad laying up. Yeah.
Because I saw you post this and I had to put my phone down and walk away. I literally was like, God dang it, Stoker. This was a lot. So first, actually, you know what? Let me put up this first image, because when I saw this image, I was very bothered by it itself. This is our good, terrible president looking like his version of a "We Want You" poster. Defend the homeland, join ICE today. And if anybody has been paying attention, the perks of joining ICE have become very impressive. They're giving you student loan relief. They're giving you, is it 6 figures?
6 figures. Also, the DHS posted yesterday that they're like, join now, inquire, up to $50,000 enlistment bonuses. So that's actually more than the enlistment bonuses for many members enlisting in the military. So what they're going to get, not just like loan forgiveness, but they're going to start getting military benefits because they are building a military for the homeland that, they don't need to declare martial law for.
Okay, so you posted this. You said the engine of our dying empire requires another forever war, and we no longer possess the power projection to do it abroad. So
like in Iran.
Right. So it will be waged in the homeland. Now it's a race to see if the material conditions degrade enough for a popular revolution before the techno-feudalists integrate mass drone warfare into your local police department. Every paragraph of this, including the one sentence, could be an entire New Yorker 15-page article because there's a lot for people to unpack here. But I would like for you to just on a basic level tell me, when you're saying that you feel they're building an army that doesn't require martial law, why wouldn't it require martial law? And how is that going to be utilized in your mind?
Well, there are certain laws and federal regulations regarding how you deploy the National Guard, especially active duty as well. That's why, the troops in LA were limited in what they could do. And, they weren't really asked to do anything extra legal because, they don't want the ability for officers and non-commissioned officers to be able to refuse, because you can refuse unlawful orders with no repercussions. Yeah, so they didn't even want to engage in the potential for that, or like that leaking out publicly that the National Guard is not obeying orders. So they weren't really put in that position. They were deployed for a bunch of stupid stuff. It was a show of force. Everybody hated it. I interviewed National Guard guys that were deployed there, and they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to get out now. So it wasn't great. Because there's a lot of still legal restrictions on what you can do, how you can deploy them. But with ICE, you don't need any of that. It's a completely extrajudicial force that's not accountable to anybody. They don't act like cops. You don't have to have a warrant. There's no train of evidence, where people are taken, where they are sent. It's starting with the quote unquote migrants right now, or the undocumented illegals. But, we can see where this is going.
And just for ish and giggles,
who
created ICE?
Oh, yeah. It's Obama, right? I'm pretty sure. Like he at least expanded it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and anyways, it's all been building off each other. And, Republicans are worse than Democrats on like every issue, exponentially worse. We can't like discount that, except for like the random based take where they're like, we should stop the war in Ukraine, but it's always for the wrong reasons anyways. So, but like the Democrats do this stuff too. They've all laid the groundwork for this to finally happen. And when I say like, when I mention the techno-feudalists, I mean like Peter Thiel, Alex Karp. Everybody knows that they're integrating Palantir, which has been super controversial in places like New Orleans with their predictive police algorithms, which, basically just target like lower income, generally black neighborhoods and stuff with. And so basically what a predictive police algorithm is it uses a bunch of factors driven by AI to allocate police assets into a place where before a crime or when a crime is actually happening. So it's what we call in military circles.
Are we in Minority Report?
I mean, if they could prosecute thought crime, they would. But, that's what the anti-Semitism bill is actually kind of like the precursor to. But no, it's a force multiplier. Okay, so what that means in military terms, a force multiplier is like something that gives you the presence of having more soldiers without actually having more soldiers or more police. So mobility is a force multiplier. So like if you are mobile and quick enough to perform like 3 operations in a night instead of 2, that gives you a bigger ground presence. So it's a force multiplier. So
got it.
Like when revolutions happen, what do we know? There's never enough soldiers and there's never enough cops. So this national database system is a force multiplier for police and military assets.
Got it.
And, you know, when I talk about mass drone warfare, one of the reasons everyone needs to care about the war in Ukraine, because it's not just, you know, a geopolitical war, it's an open air weapons test. So when I was still in the military, there was a lot of anxiety about how drone warfare would look. And nobody wanted to learn it using US troops. That was, you know, baked into the upper echelons of Pentagon command. So what the war in Ukraine is, and this is why everyone's looking at it, and one of the reasons it keeps going is because we are learning how to wage drone warfare. And as we know, everything we do overseas in terms of like violence or repression, in terms of tech or military equipment, always is almost immediately used in our own law enforcement apparatus. So yeah, Alex Karp, like Palantir, Thales, Anduril, all these, you know, techno-feudalist nerd names that they brought out in Lord of the Rings, even though Tolkien would have hated each and every one of them. That's what they're doing. It's an open air weapons test, and you know that's why they're integrating mass drone warfare, Palantir quote unquote hive mind technology into local law enforcement. Happy Wednesday.
I'm like, how does anyone, because I guess what I'm in my mind, I'm just like, that's like the end of the world.
Hey, but you know, that's capitalism for you. You know, the world might end. We might be killed by Terminators, but hey, at least we had some great companies and, you know, expanded shareholder profits. We fulfilled our fiduciary responsibility to boil the seas. Let's go.
I want to correct myself, y'all. I was wrong. It was not Obama that created ICE. It was Bush, but he fine-tuned it. That was the implication with Obama. He fine-tuned ICE. So my last question for you is really just a question for you. In the midst of this, like, where's your head at in like existing?
I mean, not great. You know, and I don't think like anyone's having a particularly good time right now. You know, I have some dysfunctional ways of dealing with it. I generally go to like punk and metal shows every time they're in town, even if it's a work night, and just how am I dealing with it? I don't know. Like I ask myself incapable.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, what, like, because people who have kids are like, I'm just trying to, you know, they put their energy into like, I'm just taking care of the kids, and I have cats, so
yeah, we've got 3.
You see, so, and I know your partner, she's also in this kind of work as well, correct?
Yeah, she does a lot of prison industrial wrongful conviction reporting. So
it's fun times in the house.
You know. So definitely we just adopted another cat because that's a way of coping with it. So I don't know, the more it gets, I guess the more cats will collect.
Yes,
you know.
I have 2 cats named Lumumba and Sankara that just made it to my house.
I have found though, like getting involved in activism, and you know, the more pissed I get, the more direct actions I want to do. It is a way to the only way to really for me to cope with it. Otherwise, I'm not someone who can be like all these other veterans who are like, you know, I know it's messed up and we hate the military industrial complex, but I did my time, man. Just leave me alone. I'm trying to live my life. I can't be like that. That's not my personality. So I basically have to get stuck in or go insane generally at the same time, you know, and just keep on keeping on and, you know, have some revolutionary optimism that a better world is possible. And I think we're already building it just by the simple act of waking up and understanding how all these systems are working together. And I would just like to remind people, like, there is no single issue. I mean, there is a single issue. The same reason we're devastating in trying to build Gaza Lago in the Gaza Strip is the same reason why you can barely make rent. It's why ICE is expanding to be a larger military force than the entire Marine Corps. There's only one issue. It's our entire political and economic system. And, I think as Kwame Ture said, like, activists mobilize against issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. So
say it one more time. Say it one more time. Say it one more time. Slow.
Okay. Activists mobilize for issues. Revolutionaries organize against systems. So when Harris was on the campaign trail and we were criticizing her policies, people were like, sorry, I can't afford to be a single issue voter. And I'm like, MFer, there is only one issue. It's all the same issue. I mean, I could write an entire dissertation connecting all these different issues, including
it's at the root.
Yeah. So I would just like to remind people of that. If people call you a single issue voter, be like, good. And let me tell you why that's a good thing.
Well, thank you so much for being not a morning person. I feel like you really showed up.
Yeah, it's this non-Starbucks because it's, cold brew that we got going on.
I am now making my own matcha these days.
Oh, excellent.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So, that's where we're at with it. But Stoker, thank you so much for joining us. And I am off of my hiatus, so I need to come through Colonial Outcasts. And can you tell people where they can check out the podcast?
Yeah, so I got 2 shows right now. I do State of Play on Mint Press News, which is a small independent newsroom who you should follow for like dirty leftist perspectives on geopolitics, and my own personal podcast, Colonial Outcasts, the anti-imperialist podcast your white uncle will hate.
That's a great tagline. Yes. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day. If you have to go take a nap, and thank you for your service.
Oh, yeah. This is my service now. Thanks so much for having me. Y'all have a good day.
Peace. Y'all, that was a blast. Yay. So how y'all feeling about this new format of Views from Amanda Land? Y'all liking it so far? Y'all liking it so far? You're good with it? You with us? Are we rocking and rolling? I hope you are, because I'm liking it, okay? I've got some notes that I've been taking on things that I need to make adjustments for. But nonetheless, I feel like we're doing good. Yeah, we're in it. We're about to get into hour number 2. Welcome to Views from Amanda Land, your news and truths by any joke necessary. Thank you for waking up on the right side of history. Now, one thing I want to deploy, because I know you'll appreciate it, is I think we should do a check-in every hour! Hey! It's hour number 2. It's hour number 2, 11 a.m. This is how we do. Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Who's joining us for the 11 o'clock hour? Let's go! Amanda Lander's here to learn. Hey! Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. This is a good time to take a potty break and come back. Sugarland, Texas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Boise, Idaho, Hell's Kitchen, New York City, Portland, Oregon, Chicago, Chi-Town, DTLA, Memphis, Maine, Tennessee, Arkansas, University Place, Washington, San Jose, Cali, baby, Stone Mountain, Georgia, Columbus, Ohio, Alabama, Nebraska, Long Beach, Cali, hello from London, hey Fahad, Mac City, St. Louis, came over from Instagram, woo! Allentown, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, Maryland, Durham, North Carolina, Long Beach, California, Minneapolis, Toledo, Ohio, Sacktown, Midtown, Boston, Manchester, UK, Cleveland Rocks, Cleveland Rocks, Queens, New York City. We got another Memphis, Maine, Hell's Kitchen, NYC, Dallas, Texas at work, Fort Worth, Texas at work, Lightdale, Texas, Oak Cliff, Texas. We are really in Texas. Yuma, Arizona, Corvallis, Oregon, Toronto, Canada, Maricopa, Arizona. Somebody is have a to right here at Views from Amanda Land. Remember, I do this show, okay? I do this show for the love, all right? So I would like to ask you all to take a moment to show your love. Hey, show your love, show your love. Drop a super in the chat. Show your love. Ooh, my voice is really whack. I said, hit me in the cash app, baby. Drop a super, baby. We've got more show for you like Jeffrey Sachs. We're so happy that we are back. Pass the plate and drop something in it. My name is Amanda Bennett. I am in it. I'm trying to tell y'all the facts like that. I'm trying to show y'all that we're not whack. So show your love. Show your love. Show your love. Show your love. Yeah. I really be cracking myself up, to be honest. Thank y'all for showing your love and dropping some supers in the chat. Are y'all watching this show with your teenagers? Because I would really love for y'all to do that. I would really love for y'all to be watching this show with your teens. If you are on Instagram, come on over to YouTube Amanda Seales TV and join the actual show, the actual chat, so you can hear all the music I'm singing to, all the production. I'm feeling really good about being back, y'all. And I also want to remind you that you can get your Fascists Are Not Your Friends Bone merch available at Amanda Land Exports.
The latest drop at Amanda Land Exports may look like it's a game, but reminds us that fascism certainly is not. Get your Fascists Are Not Your Friends tees, stickers, and more at amandalandexports.com.
Okay. Now listen, I'm very proud of the Fascists Are Not Your Friends image, because what it is like, I feel like it looks like kids, right? It looks like kids stuff, and it makes somebody like, it pulls people in, but in reality, it's like, oh, fascists are not your friends. So please go over to Amanda Land Exports. This is how I exist now. You know, like I bought my book back from the publisher. If y'all didn't know that, if you want to hear the story about that, go subscribe to Patreon. Want to remind you also that after the show, we are deploying a new Patreon-only segment called the After Show Convo. I think that's what I have it called right now. It'll probably change, but the After Show Kickback. That's what I said, the After Show Kickback. So after every episode of Views from Amanda Land, if you are a paid subscriber on Patreon, remember it's only a $5 subscription, you can be a part of the After Show Kickback, where we as a group talk about what's going on in the show. People get to talk about it to each other, ask me questions, ask each other questions, etc. I do ship to Canada, yes. And I'm very excited about being able to have that space for you guys. So remember, the After Show Kickback starts right after the end of the show. Also, we have Jeffrey Sachs joining us at 11:30. You know what? Let's find out. How back do you feel today? Hey. Fade in the water. Fade in the water, children. Fade in the water. Someone's gonna beat you in the water. I said fade in the water. Get that chair. Fade in the water, children. Fade in the water. Trouble's gonna hit ya by the water. Cassie is hilarious. Yesterday was the anniversary of Fade in the Water, which we know to be the day in Montgomery, Alabama, where at the former old slave port, a brother cast his cap into the air, calling on the ancestors to help him when these white boys on these boats had tried to assault him. And boy, we pulled up. Actually, we skipped up, actually, is what took place. We skipped up. Okay. We skipped up. This day lives on and should continue to live on in history. I know that so often I just feel like Black people, we are splintered as a community. We do not know how to show up for each other. It feels like we have also been kind of just pacified into Black excellence. But no, not that day. KRT said sinners too, aka swimmers. Oh my gosh. I know that they're probably not even gonna allow this episode to be monetized because I showed that video, but we have to commemorate it. And especially for all of our HQWs in the building, I know you high quality whites may not have known about this event because it was very sequestered in the Black Twitter universe. But this is a very real situation that went down. So these white men in Montgomery, Alabama, were told that they cannot park their boats on the dock because there were like Riviera boats that were coming in, like boats that were actually a part of the city, to my knowledge. And they're basically a part of like a tour group, right? And so the brother who is supposed to be manning the dock told them, hey, you cannot put your boats here. And they was like, oh, we're going to do whatever we want. And they ran up in their docksiders. They ran up with their white boy cargo pants on. And they really thought they was going to turn up. And they would have if the Black folks on the boats that were docking hadn't seen what went down and said, oh, not today, devil. Not today. And when I tell you, watching that footage never gets old. I suggest that you watch that over again. And every time you watch it, look for someone else. When you see Buddy who jumped in the water and swam to the dock, when you see the two sisters with the chairs that hit the ladies, when you see the brothers skipping up off the boat, like, okay. When you see the cats jumping over the balcony, every time you watch it, you will see someone new who said, you know what? This is my business. And this is actually what I mean when I say we are each other's business. There is no version of life where we should ever see somebody getting beat and not jump in when it's like a scenario where you see somebody as being overpowered by oppressive forces. It really is there's no version of it. And so when I saw this, I'm with you, Jess Ramsey. It like gave me hope for humanity. It was like, oh my gosh, like maybe we do still have it in us. You know, Chloe Johnson said, it blesses me. It really blesses me. I feel you. And you see, Claire said, I didn't know about it. My YA self definitely didn't know about this. Exactly. But I am committed to breaking down barriers that have been built by race and culture and breaking the dams to let shared value systems cross waters. All right. And you know what? So Yishay says, I'm curious what happened to those people and if they faced prosecution, was there monetary assistance for them? So some of the people had lost their jobs, but other people, like the white people, they did get charged. And I'm not sure what the final order of business was, but the brother still works there. So, you know, in Alabama, I'm surprised that even still happens. So I'm really appreciative of this going viral, because that's also the thing that saves us so often, is just the visibility of things. All right. The visibility of things. And, you know, Cortez said Puerto Ricans, we're next up. Bring our chanclas, people. I'm seeing ICE down in Puerto Rico. And I saw some Puerto Rican folks and holding ICE back and saying like, nah, you can't come through here. And I really hope that this ends up becoming more and more expansive in Puerto Rico, because I know that the people of Puerto Rico don't play. I know this because I have friends from the Bronx. So there's that. Okay. But you know, we have a member here in the chat from Japan who reminded us that this is the 80th, I don't like the term anniversary. So this is the 80th year of commemoration for the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima. And there have been like moments of silence and ceremonies that have been happening in Japan today in recognition of this. And, you know, when you put these two images side to side from each other, you see how American imperialism, like how it just goes to such great lengths across waters and still exists on our land. And, I didn't even realize this, but the fact that, I mean, I can't pronounce your name because I can't read Japanese, but the fact that this person in our chat said that they invited Israel again is confused. Like, it's just like, like, why are we still doing this? Now, later, you know, we're going to ask our question of the week, and it has something to do with Israel. So stick around for our bonus question, because it is going to be referencing Israel. Okay. But I love that we have such a global community here at Views from Amanda Land. It really brings me great joy that you guys are in the mix with us, and that you guys are so deeply committed to expanding our knowledge and information. Now, we have Jeffrey Sachs joining us in a second, but we do have a new episode of Small Doses Podcast. And this week we were so lucky to be joined by brilliant politician, as well as, I don't even like the word politician because he's a public servant, brilliant public servant, socialist, academic, author, Eugene Puryear, who talked to us about the side effects of a two-party system. And let's play a clip from that. So if you haven't listened to Small Doses Podcast, please make it your business to go and do so. But let's take a listen to some clips.
Slavery was ended politically in this country was third parties. That's why I brought up Frederick Douglass. Like, I think most Black people feel happy that we don't have formal slavery and think that was a step forward, whatever other problems that there are here. Well, none of that happened through the two major parties. It actually happened because Black people and the abolitionist allies broke up the two major parties and formed their own institutions and entities and took power at the center with the Republican Party, which was the third party at the time. People don't talk about it like that.
Wait. You're saying, whoa, stop. I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
So take a sip of your drink. Yes, because now you got to run it back. Now this is not a podcast. This is a class. Okay. Yes. What?
Yes. The Republican
Party. My master's proves pointless. Did you all know that? Because I didn't know that. Did you all know that? Eugene Puryear is super brilliant. And let's hear another clip from this week's episode of Small Doses Podcast, where he continues to school us on the side effects of a two-party system. Is it that the Democrats are so adamantly opposed to the inviting of a third party into the space?
Because it is going to hurt the material interests of the people who really run the Democrats. You know, you think about the donors, but it's not just the donors. I always tell people, if you really want to open your eyes, look at the vendors. The election cost $6 billion or whatever it was. Who got that money? And that means there's a whole series of lawyers and media buyers and ad makers and consultants and other people whose entire livelihood is based on very, very rich people contributing large sums of money to campaigns and then the campaigns paying them to do it. And then you have this whole class of so-called political professionals that are dependent on this sort of, capitalist-driven two-party system. So for them, there is an identity of interest between Democrats and Republicans to eliminate third parties.
You catching my drift? You catching my drift? If you have not listened to this episode of Small Doses Podcast, I really am imploring that you do so that you can get not only information about the present, but really vital information about the past. It's really been brought to my attention that when it comes to the stories of abolitionism, we really haven't been told those stories at length in the way that we are taught about the civil rights movement. And I just did an interview yesterday on Small Doses Podcast with the incredible Kelly Carter Jackson, who is just such a goddamn delight. Jeez Louise. And she wrote this book, We Refuse, A Forceful History of Black Resistance. But her previous book, Force and Freedom, is about the abolitionist movement. And we were talking about just the concept of what it will take to try to fight back in this new era. And she was like, I really feel like we don't talk enough about the ways that it was effective, the way that the abolitionist movement was effective. And we don't. We don't. And so, when you hear Eugene Prieur talking about Frederick Douglass, this is also what made me be like, okay, I need to start learning more about Frederick and about what was going down. We are skipping over 100 years of history that we really need to know about as helpful tools to the now. Let's listen to one last clip from Small Doses Podcast this week, Side Effects of a Two-Party System, featuring Eugene Prieur.
The difference between what is and what could be is a political system controlled by a small group of very rich people who are choosing not to do things that could help all of us. And I think once we recognize that is the case, we can move very quickly and very rapidly to transition, but we don't believe enough in ourselves.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. I feel like the first part of believing that those people are not effective, I think there are enough people that believe that. Right? Like there are people that are still like, yay, politicians. But I do think there are enough people who are like, nah, I don't really rock with that. I don't think there's enough of us that believe in us. And I don't think there's enough of us that understand our capabilities as a unit or know how to determine what we would bring to that.
Yeah.
You feel me? I think that's part of it too. So make sure to check that out. And somebody said Frederick Douglass was great for Black people, but a terrible husband. To be quite honest, show me one that was a good husband. I think maybe Malcolm. Because at the end of the day, it's still patriarchy. Right? At the end of the day, it's still patriarchy. So, I haven't really heard a lot of examples of any of these brothers that was really holding it down on the husband field. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but the ones that we know, no, they ain't really been on that. Keeping it a buck. Thank you to everybody who's been ordering their Fascists Are Not Your Friends merch while we've been on the show. I really appreciate it. Want to remind you that your girl Amanda Seales is a completely independent entity at this point. So any support you show any of my work, it goes a long way. You can support me by subscribing to Patreon. You can support me by going to amandalandexports.com and purchasing yourself some merchandise. And remember, when you're supporting my merch, I'm actually designing all of this. This isn't I'm just getting this from other places and throwing up in the mix. No, I'm designing this myself. And we've definitely got some other stuff coming this month. I'm actually going to end up having to probably hire somebody to come and help me package, because the one person being one person thing is kind of getting a bit much. It's getting a bit much. It's getting a bit much. So just want to throw that out there. But I do not ship internationally yet, not for like a fair price, but I will be doing so shortly. And when I open up Amanda Land Exports International, you will be able to get some of the stuff that I have been selling for this past year. Okay? Because that's, to me, very important. And, you know, there's just the business of business is really like annoying and difficult and hard. Okay? And hard. It's literally just hard. But I'm looking forward to starting some new projects, namely stuff that is for parents and kids. So really just kind of appreciating getting more time and space to do that. And thank you to everybody who came out to my show, What Would the Ancestors Say? Last week. We had a really great show, and it was at the TPF at the People's Forum. And I really appreciate just the fact that we've been allowed to work in this space and give the show away for free. However, we had 350 RSVPs, but only 100 people showed up. And I just feel like that feels sketchy. And that feels like Zionist behaviors. So moving forward, I'm going to be changing the way that our sign up exists for the shows. Now, the next What Would the Ancestors Say free show will be in New York City on September 6th, okay? It'll be in New York City on September 6th. So make sure that you write that on your calendar. Also, even if you've seen the show before, every show is advancing towards a official version of the show that will have extra little things like dropped in. But now I am absolutely like working to fine tune and hone the show so that it can be released as a script in November. So that is the effort that's been put forth right now. So mark your calendars, September 6th in New York City at the TPF. I will be performing What Would the Ancestors Say? Now, for those of you who don't know, the Amanda Land Summit is still open for registrations. So make sure you go to amandaseals.com and sign up for that. And we are about to get into our Level Us Up guest for the week. I hope you're ready with your questions, because when we have great minds that have given us time, we need to be prepared with great questions. Do not embarrass me. Okay. All right. Do not embarrass me. Let's get into our Level Us Up guest for the week. Amanda Land. I'm fangirling.
All right.
I'm intellectually fangirling. Professor Sachs, how are you today?
I'm so happy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us your time and willing to share your brilliance with us. If you all don't know, you need to know that we are joined by Professor Jeffrey David Sachs, world-renowned economist, best-selling author. But also, I consider you to be an HQW. Do you know what an HQW is?
I don't think so.
I
should.
Quality white. You're a high quality white. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Good.
That's a big title to claim. Okay.
Whoa.
So yeah, we've bestowed this upon you after witnessing so many of your interviews and just the consistency with which you have been so generous in telling truths that so many are afraid to share, and that I believe are imperative in breaking the imperialist effort of idiocracy.
It continues, doesn't it? This idiocracy.
It really does. And as a graduate of the Institute for Research in African American Studies at Columbia, I really despise my school at this point and appreciate that you have been a voice that's like, I teach at Columbia, but I'm not doing what they're doing.
By the way, I regard that movie, Idiocracy, as the best documentary ever made about the United States of America. I don't know if you've watched that movie recently, but people should. It is completely what we have right now is an idiocracy.
I do call this, I mean, there's the age of enlightenment, and I call this the age of idiocy. And I think some people might say that that is being kind of like too generic around where we are, but no,
it's true because nobody wants to talk about serious things. It's so stupid, the nature of the discussion that goes on right now. And it's terrifying how stupid it is. By the way, yesterday I was at the UN Security Council, sitting, listening to a Security Council session about Gaza. Israel is starving 2 million people. And the session was actually called by Israel to complain about Hamas supposedly starving 20 people, 20 hostages. And the American representative there, truly at the pinnacle of idiocracy, could not mention that Israel is starving 2 million people. It's just unbelievable.
Could not, because
it is so phony. All she wanted to do was say how wonderful our president is in defending Israel. And so to say anything about reality on the ground, a genocide underway, a mass starvation underway, that would break the spell because, after all, the United States is complicit in this genocide. And this is how our discussions are. You just cannot believe that there is, even in a venue as exalted as the UN Security Council, which I regard as pretty exalted because it's a great idea, the level of untruth is unbelievable.
Why do you feel it's a great idea?
It's a great idea that governments of the world should get together to make peace rather than war. So the idea of the UN Security Council is a wonderful idea of a president I regard as our greatest president, Franklin Roosevelt, that we should figure out a way to make peace. But if there's no truth in that chamber, if the United States just repeats imperial lies, which it did yesterday, if the Israeli government, which was completely repulsive in its statements by the foreign minister, who accused the whole world of being anti-Semitic for daring to point out that Israel's committing a genocide and a mass starvation, by the way, then it doesn't work. You know, we don't have a functioning UN right now. We don't have a functioning politics. And the United States is unfortunately the main promoter and defender of idiocracy.
Would you agree, though, that ultimately the United States has been at the forefront of there even being a necessity for a space for peace to be called? Like, to me, I'm looking at the Security Council and the fact that the United States has veto power. To me, veto is the legitimacy of the Security Council.
Yeah, I would say it has rendered that veto, meaning that any one of 5 countries, the so-called permanent 5, can veto the will of the whole rest of the world community, has made the Security Council pretty much useless because when a real issue comes forward, one that did come forward last year was admitting Palestine to the UN, which, of course it should be. The U.S. single-handedly vetoed it, while more than 180 of the 193 countries said yes. So you're right that it basically has profoundly undermined the UN. Now, the veto was put in 1945 to get the great powers of the day to agree to join in such an organization. And at the time, it's interesting, you know, hard to remember, but there are 5 permanent powers. There's the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. Hard to remember, but they were the allies in World War II. So when the UN was set in 1945, it wasn't envisioned that this was a confrontation among these five. These were allies that had defeated Hitler and fascism, Nazism. But then it quickly degenerated, unfortunately.
What do you feel was the source of the degeneration?
In my view, the United States always wanted dominance rather than wanting peace. And I witnessed that in my own career after 1991, because I was an advisor to Russia in 1992 and 1993, when the Russians were saying, we want peace, we want normalcy. And the United States was, no, we demand subservience. That's different. And so the U.S. always has this idea of dominance or hegemony, if you want to call it that, or primacy is another word, or superiority.
Primacy.
Yeah. You know,
like
number one.
Prime, yeah.
We need to be number one. And that, to my mind, is what undermines world cooperation until today. The U.S. just can't take peace for an answer. It can only accept subservience. This is today, you know, Trump demanded that India stop buying oil from Russia. The Indian government pointed out, yeah, but you guys buy things from Russia, and so we buy things from Russia too. No, you do as we say. And then Trump, as the would-be emperor of the world, issued his executive decree, of which he has absolutely no real power, except that the pathetic political class in Washington lets him do every decree that he wants.
Yes.
He said, okay, India now pays an extra 25% tariff. You know, these lightning bolts from Mount Olympus that this Zeus issues to the world. That's the American way right now. Now, I find it a little bit odd. India happens to have 1.5 billion people.
Yes.
The United States happens to have 335 million people. India is nearly 5 times larger. You would think we would have some diplomacy, some mutual respect. No. Demand.
Well, Biden demanded the same thing from India. I remember being in Ireland and seeing this on the news, because you never see it in the States. I remember being in Ireland in 2022. I was filming an episode of, just because you're curious, not you, but I know the chat is like, why were you in Ireland? To film an episode of Name That Tune, which randomly films in Ireland. But I remember on the news, they were saying that Biden was saying the same thing, and India as well, again, was saying, no, like, we're going to get our oil from there, because also they're right there. So that's
but that raises another point, which is really true. Trump is, you know, idiot in chief, no question. But the truth is, we've had this one presidency after another. So it's not unique to Trump, although I think he wants to win prizes. So he definitely wins the prize for this. But the other presidents have been awful. And in my telling, in my sense, each one has been worse than the next or than the previous one. It's just been one thing after another, completely depressing. And this has gone on presidency after presidency. So I'm not a happy camper with either party, with any president. But what's happening right now is really a complete degeneration of our politics and our supposed constitutional order. In other words, in which there are rules and you do certain things based on law and so forth. We don't have that anymore.
So let's take it all the way back. How did you become this kind of person? How did you become a white man in America who can see it for what it is and who's willing to voice it?
It grew over time because, fortunately, first I grew up in a family of some skeptics, and at age 14, I was out in Moratorium Day in 1968 in Detroit protesting the Vietnam War. So actually,
you were in Detroit?
Yeah, I'm in Detroit, Motown. Come on.
Okay, we're getting somewhere.
Maybe that answers the whole thing, right? maybe that answers the
It's
whole.
not like you were in Idaho. You was in the D. Got
Of course.
Okay.
I'm a Detroiter. Come on. So, so part of it was always there. But I have to tell you that, the truth that is, I knew, look, I had Vietnam, the Kennedy assassinations, and Robert Kennedy was my first real political love. It's just this visceral thing. Martin Luther King, the whole era. I didn't know to put Malcolm X with them at the time. That took me something that I had to learn over time. But it was an age of great unrest. And thank God, I was a kid then. I was barely a teenager, but I imbibed that. So I always had the skepticism. But I know, because I went off to Harvard and I trained at Harvard and I joined the faculty at Harvard. I was very proud to be, I'm an economist, so I was very proud to be an American economist. I thought, this is good. Now I'm going to go out and work in the world. And I'm proud I'm an American because now I can help to shape things, influence things, and so forth. So even though I knew Vietnam and Watergate and blah, 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 I believed in the basic good direction of the United States and U.S. policy. I was not yet so, saying idiocracy. And then all of my work from basically 1985 onward, so it's been 40 years, has been working with other countries and typically appealing back to the United States. Do this, help them, do that, because I'm a basic believer that even governments and countries should help each other. This is not a normal idea, but it is my idea. Yeah, exactly.
So radical.
Exactly. So I thought that was kind of normal, that countries should help each other. The Marshall Plan, by the way, was, loomed large in my imagination. The post-World War II plan. It only was later in life that I discovered it also helped fund CIA operations in Europe. So there's nothing pure about the Marshall Plan. There were some good things about it, but it was not the most unsorted deed in history, as Winston Churchill said. It actually funded CIA operations. And these are things you learn over time. But I learned step by step that there's a certain underlying perfidy, a certain underlying evil to a lot of it. And it did not come intuitively to me. I'm a kind of naive person. So I naively believed, for example, maybe one of the most painful parts of my professional life was advising Boris Yeltsin, president of Russia, newly independent, in 1992. And I said to President Yeltsin, I am sure the United States will help you. This was a moment of need. It was kind of a economic chaos. The Soviet Union had collapsed. There was a debt crisis. There were many, many problems. I said, of course the U.S. will help you. This is the biggest, best thing that's ever happened, the end of the Cold War. Of course, the United States didn't help at all because, and I didn't understand why, but the idea, I understand in retrospect, was help Russia? No, bring Russia to its knees, make them subservient to us, expand the U.S. empire. So the answer to your question is, it grew over time. And it grew with my understanding of events. And because I've been in political circles for 40 years, and I've heard a lot and seen a lot, I've seen things you don't normally see that are pretty ugly. And I've seen coups, and I've seen presidents tell me they're going to get taken out by the CIA, and then they were. And that's like Aristide in Haiti. And when you hear that directly, and, when President Aristide, whom I was trying to help, said to me, Jeff, they're going to take me out.
What did I say? You were trying to help. Oh, wait, finish what you said.
Oh, this was, in Haiti, an impoverished place. And I was trying to give him a hand on economic betterment. And he said, Jeff, they're going to take me out. What did I say? Stupidly, I said, no, they're not going to do that. We're going to make this work. And of course, they took him out, literally. You know,
Yes.
one day, the U.S. ambassador marched to the presidential door and knocked on the door and said, "Mr. Aristide, follow me to a plane because we're going to save your life. In other words, we're going to assassinate you unless you get on a CIA plane." And 23 hours later, he was deposited in the Central African Republic. And that's how coups work. And Amanda, when that happened, but again, I'm emphasizing first, I was naive. I did not think that they would grab a president, stick him on a plane, and send him to Central African Republic.
Why? Because they've been doing this.
Why was I naive?
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a middle-class household in Detroit, believing that the United States did not take presidents out of their houses and put them on planes and depose them that way. Naive. That's all I can tell you. I just didn't. So I'll add to my naivete. I called the New York Times correspondent in Port-au-Prince, whom I knew and was a friend. And I said, there's been a coup. Are you going to report this? And she said to me, "Jeff, the editor's not interested." True. So you get glimpses of how the empire works. All the news that's fit to print, a CIA coup in the Western Hemisphere, and you can't get an honest story in the New York Times. By the way, by a reporter who is somebody that I like to this day, who still writes to this day, but who was not allowed, or whatever reason, to tell the truth, the basic truth.
Is it fair to say that there was more than just naivete, but a certain level of privilege that is attributed to believing that the United States is a moral place? Because I don't know any Black person who would believe that the United States is a moral place that knows its history. And I say that in the context of, we are at an inflection point, I would say, where many folks are not just looking at the United States as a place that is harming themselves, but I think like more and more people are now grasping the grandeur of like imperialism as a real thing, not just as something that took place on Star Wars.
And they should. Oh, no, definitely. This is the American empire, and it has ways of behavior, and it needs to be understood. And again, I'm going to say in my own defense, I've worked hard, although it has taken steps to understand this over a 40-year period. And I do understand a lot of it right now. But I have to say, I had hopes when Bill Clinton became president. Okay, I did. Then I had hopes when Barack Obama became president. And I met with him early in his administration, had dinner, sat next to him in the White House, and it was profoundly disappointing. And so,
why?
Because he didn't do anything other than keep up the same foreign policy and did nothing.
When I tell you Jeffrey Sachs, they be eating me up on this internet for saying that.
Yeah. But it's true.
Like people think the presidency, and this is one of my specific questions that I had for you, like, what do you consider the presidency to be now versus what you thought it was?
Well, look,
the role of the president.
I'll give you two things with Obama. I voted for him. I campaigned for him. I cried the night he won the election. I was so happy. We went out in the streets. It seemed like a new era. Two sad truths. Early in his administration, I sat next to him and I told him, by the way, that I had just been to his ancestral village in Western Kenya, a place called Kangelo, because I was doing development work around Lake Victoria, and his ancestral village is there. And I said, there are wonderful things that this country can do for Africa right now. And he looked at me and flat out said, we don't have the votes.
And I looked back at him and thought in the little bubble over my head, that's your job, Mr. President. I can give you some ideas about how to control malaria and how to make economic development, but your job is to get the votes. He never tried to get the votes. Let me put it that way, in the most charitable way. So there was no initiative at all. Quite the contrary. Many bad things happened. I had been the architect of something called the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. And it was the Obama administration that froze the budget of that fund, even as it was proving that it could save millions of lives per year.
Why would they do that?
Budget austerity, because they didn't see the value in it. They didn't understand. He didn't want to go get the votes, whatever it is, because he had a complete mediocrity as head of the Office of Management and Budget, who had no moral imagination, no idea, and so they froze it. And but worse came because Obama was the president who gave the order to the CIA to overthrow the Syrian government. He was the president that gave the order to overthrow the Libyan government. He was the president that gave the order for the U.S. to be a major part of the coup in February 2014 that overthrew Ukraine's president and put us on the path to war. Obama was a warmonger. He won the Nobel Peace Prize basically for nothing, and then pursued a typical, not an unusual, but a typical American foreign policy, a warmongering, war of choice foreign policy. So this is the disappointment. You could tell me, wake up! Don't be so stupid.
Because I'm going to get to that about Israel, but we're not there yet. So.
Oh no! But in any event, I'm so stupid. I even had a tiny glimmer of hope for Biden, but.
No, you know what? I did too. I cried when Biden won because they had made the boogeyman of Trump so massive. And it was very much the mindset of, if we don't do this, then we're going to get Trump in here again and we're all going to lose. And, I also felt I didn't like Biden, but then I felt so overwhelmed by the messaging and the marketing of, but if we don't, then which then got repeated in 2024. And that's when I started to really be like, well, now hold on now. So tell me about Biden.
Just the only thing about Biden is I knew him personally. I'd known these presidents. I thought, kind of a working man's background, and that there would be some fundamental sense in this, which there wasn't. The Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, was I hope remains a dear friend of mine, because she taught me economics 50 years ago when I was an undergraduate at Harvard, and we were friends for a half century. But what they did was just awful from beginning to end. And I ended
walk
up
us through that, because I feel like a lot of folks don't have the prescient knowledge of you that you do to understand what was terrible, because it's always the marketing. We all know about the propaganda machine that we exist in, right? And so I feel like so many of us were really wooed by but it's the chips. We're going to be doing chips now. And, look at the loans, the student loans now. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that still believe, well, no, but Biden, and ultimately it's like taxes. They make it so difficult so that there's an actual chasm between who can actually see what's really happening versus like how it's happening. So could you just explain it to us like we're five?
Let me just give you two quick
explain it
points.
to us like we're five.
Yeah, two very quick points. One is this war in Ukraine.
Okay.
The war in Ukraine started because the United States said, we're going to move our military bases and our missile systems into Ukraine right up to Russia's border.
Yes.
That's why we have this war. Everything else is a lie, by the way. Not because Putin wanted to recreate the Russian Empire or the unprovoked invasion. The United States had a plan. It goes back to the 1990s. It would be like the analogy of, say, China establishing military bases in Mexico on the Rio Grande. Do you like it or you don't like it? Well, I don't think we would like it here very much. The United States does not believe in the golden rule. Do to other countries what you would have them do to you. The United States believes do what we say and shut up.
Right.
And so the United States said, we're moving NATO to Ukraine. We're moving missile systems to Ukraine. We're going right up to your border. We're overthrowing the Ukrainian government and so forth. Okay, that's the backdrop to this terrible war. The war started in 2014. It escalated because the United States pumped in arms and money to Ukraine, including the Trump period, of course. Then Biden comes into office. And Putin puts on the table a security agreement between the U.S. and Russia, says, let's get back to peace. And the agreement is basically NATO, stop enlarging.
Yes.
Implement treaties that can make peace in Ukraine and so forth. So I called the White House at the end of 2021 and spoke to Jake Sullivan, whom I do not like or respect. And he was the national security advisor. And I said, Jake, negotiate. You can avoid an escalation. And he said, no, that NATO issue, we're not going to discuss that with the Russians. I said, why not, Jake? He said, well, NATO has an open door. I said, Jake, is there an open door for China and Mexico? Is there an open door for Russia to establish bases in the Caribbean? Jeff, NATO has an open door. I said, Jake, you're going to have a war. No, we're not going to have a war, Jeff. We're not going to have a war. Okay, in other words, an idiotic discussion. It comes back to idiocracy.
Yes.
Every word was wrong of what Jake Sullivan said. The war came 8 weeks later. It was obvious. The United States could not undertake diplomacy. And the deep plan of the United States was not to avoid the war. The deep plan was to quickly defeat Russia. But that's, again, a delusion. You're going to defeat a country of 17 million square kilometers, vast resource base, 6,000 nuclear warheads. Give me a break.
But do you think that was really their goal? Like, we just had journalist Greg Stoker on, who is a veteran as well, along with being a journalist. And he was saying that this war in Ukraine gave the United States the opportunity to also see what drone warfare would look like.
That's a reason why it continues, definitely. Try out the weapons. But the original idea, I'm convinced, I know it from lots of discussions also, they thought Putin would fold his hand. They thought,
the guy on the horse with no shirt on?
That's it. They thought, look, we're the United States. They really think this. This is the delusion of the United States again and again. This is the delusion of Trump thinking that India is just going to say, oh, okay, if you tell us, we won't buy oil from you. This is their delusion. It's a kind of madness. But they thought that they would win the war immediately. The economists thought, we're going to take Russia out of the U.S. SWIFT banking system. It's going to lead to a collapse of the Russian economy. I said, oh, yeah, you think so? This is foolishness, but they believe this foolishness, or they're paid to believe it. I don't know, but they really do believe it. So that was one. Second, of course, Biden gave a green light to every single thing Netanyahu did. And I couldn't stand watching Blinken with that little tear in his eye. Oh, yes, it's so difficult, so difficult. We'd prefer that there isn't a genocide, but we're not going to stop one weapon shipment, one penny, one anything to prevent it. So Biden was useless. And then we knew he was literally useless. He wasn't even there for 2 years. And that is another real crime against the American people, to fake a presidency for 2 years, basically, when the guy is semi-demented, shows that we're in the world.
They did the same with Reagan.
Yeah, we're in the world of theater. We're not in the world of
Yes.
politics. We're not in the world of security. We're in the world of theater. As long as you can manage the news cycle, you're okay. That's it.
I mean, I'm a trained thespian and I know my people.
There you go.
So my final question, Professor Sachs, and then I just want to take a couple from the people, is, I'm seeing other economists and academics, Richard D. Wolff and Jan Oberg, saying that this is the end of the U.S., like this is the collapse of the empire. And I've seen you say that as well, like it's a wrap. And I think that there's also a possibility that we could also be seeing the end of Israel. I hope, actually, that we are. What happens, in your opinion, or in history, in historical record, what happens to the people when the empires collapse?
So, first of all, one thing that's really happening is that what the U.S. proclaimed, unipolar world. In other words, we run the show.
That's the deep state, right? That's what the deep state is?
That's the military-industrial complex. That's the CIA. That's the Pentagon. We run the show worldwide. We've got our network in 80 countries, 750 military bases. We call the shots.
Right.
Okay, that world is over because we are in a multipolar world, meaning China's powerful, Russia's powerful, India is powerful. There will be other regions. Africa will play a much, much bigger role in the world in the next 25, 30 years than it has in the past history of centuries, actually. It's on the rise. So the multipolar world is here. That doesn't mean a collapse of the U.S. It just means learn some goddamn manners. Talk to other people. Don't just bomb them. Don't just make demands of them. Don't think you run the show, but actually learn to talk to each other. And that we haven't done yet. Now, will we have a collapse? It's possible. Trump's policies attack everything that could produce new innovations in technology, attack the universities, attack this, attack that. It's not. The tariff policy is an idiocy for 100 reasons. Okay, so all of that means this is not a smart way to behave. If we had decent leadership, what we would have is a multipolar world in which the U.S. would be one of several centers of the world economy. It would have, if we're not going to be invaded, we have complete security as long as we don't have nuclear war. And we would learn to live with Russia, with China, with India, without making demands, but just negotiating, trying to find normal ways. So this is the sense in which the end of the empire is upon us. It doesn't mean collapse necessarily, although it could if we're as stupid can be.
Which we
but
are,
it does,
Professor Sachs. We are.
Well, that's again where my naivete comes. I still hold to the idea that maybe we can get out of this without, a downward spiral.
But this is why I asked earlier, in terms of the presidency, I feel that there were.
I have a definition of the presidency.
Please.
Okay. The one job of an modern American president, the one job is to keep the foot on the brakes of the war machine. Honestly, I have lived through now how many administrations since
but they
Dwight,
never have.
We have occasionally. And my favorite president of my lifetime, John F. Kennedy, put the brakes on the war machine and they killed him in the end. Okay, but he did. And he gave the best speech on peace by any political leader in modern history, actually. People should go listen to his speech, June 10, 1963. It's called The Peace Speech. I wrote a book about it because I loved it so much. I knew his speechwriter, Ted Sorensen, who was a brilliant, decent man. So admittedly, my case is not perfect because they killed him. They killed Kennedy for trying to make peace. But He was a true peacemaker, especially not at the beginning of his administration. He learned it at the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962.
I've heard you talk about this.
And then the third year, from October 62 to his assassination, to my mind, was the greatest statesmanship of any modern American president or any leader. I would only put Gorbachev alongside as a great statesman of peace. So we don't have many, but we have had them once in a while. And maybe it's my hope we could have another one. We need a peace party. The Democrats and the Republicans are no different at all. They are both wholly owned subsidiaries of the military-industrial complex, completely. So it makes no difference between the two of them. And we need something different. So I'm not going to quite give up on it yet, but what I'm also hoping is that the rest of the world gets together and says to the United States, calm down, and repeats the words that the president of Brazil recently spoke, and he's been the best at this, President Lula. Mm-hmm. He said, we don't need an emperor, telling Trump, don't boss us around. And this is what the whole world needs to say to the United States. We don't want you as an empire. You don't set the rules. You are not the unipolar power. And we don't want an emperor. We don't want to read about our world from your Truth Social outbursts every hour. And this is really what we need, because the other risk is, of course, that we end up in a catastrophe. And the world is filled, history is filled with catastrophes where some stupid idiot says we can win on this, or why don't we launch a preemptive strike here, or it's time for war here. And in our nuclear age, that would be...
Right. I mean, today is literally the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima.
There you go. That is true, by the way. And that, everyone should understand, was not only a horrific event, but it was an entirely, completely 100%, not 99.99, 100% unnecessary event. Mm-hmm. The Japanese were surrendering. The claim that this would save hundreds of thousands of U.S. lives from an invasion of the mainland islands of Japan is pure, total bullshit. It's propaganda. It was propaganda back in 1945. Not only did they drop one bomb, they dropped two bombs. And Truman never thought about it again, but he liked the demonstration effect to the Soviet Union. And so this is, thank you for reminding me of this anniversary. It was not a horrible event that was the least bad or justified in any way by saving American lives. It was a completely unnecessary mass killing.
I'd like to take a couple questions from the folks, and then we'll send you back into the world to do what you do. All right. We have a question from battery_acid_baby, who says, what would it take to reform the UN Security Council? And is this something that should be revisited every 10 to 20 years to continue change and reform?
Great question. I'm going to organize some meetings this fall on UN reform in general, because UN, we need a UN 2.0 to work.
Yes.
With the Security Council, there are two big issues. One is the veto, which we talked about. It has to be changed. Yeah. It cannot be that one country can overrule the will of the whole world. Second is representation. The permanent five were the so-called allies in 1945. The world's completely different now.
Yes.
One, by the way, totally obvious point. If there's one country above all the others that needs a permanent seat and that would add to the world by having a permanent seat, it's India. 1.5 billion people. nearly 20% of the world population, a major fast rising world economy, a nuclear power. Its absence is a huge hole in representation. So I tell the Chinese, who I think in general say, why should we have, our equal counterpart in population on that might dilute it? No, if you want a multipolar world, support India to have a permanent seat on the Security Council. Now, the way that the charter was written, the UN charter, it says, and it's really the catch-22. It says, yes, the charter can be amended, but any amendment can be vetoed by any of the 5 permanent representatives.
Yeah.
That's a long story. Maybe we can come back and plan how to overcome that. The United States once had a similar problem with the Articles of Confederation. They got around it by kind of making a trick. James Madison had a devious maneuver. But in any event, we need a UN reform. And these are the 2 big things: end the veto, at least in its current form, and change the representation. That also means Africa on the Security Council. It means all different regions properly represented. But yes, the other thing I would add, by the way, because I attend a lot of Security Council sessions, I testify in the Security Council, the processes are terrible. In other words, the actual way that the meetings are run are almost useless. Yesterday, I mentioned I was sitting through 2.5 hours or so on Gaza. All that happened was, I think 17 people spoke, ambassadors mostly, and a foreign minister and so on. No discussion afterwards. You wanted to raise your hand and say, wait, that one didn't tell the truth. That one's not right. What about this one? No discussion at all. You just have
so it's all performative.
Yeah, exactly. One time around the table, and then you break. Now, there are some discussions in the hallways and so forth, but this is a disgrace. Not on the record. This is a disgraceful failure of process as well. So that needs to be fixed. Anyway, I'm going to work on it.
Thank you. Speaking of Gaza, we have another question from Gia-37. Professor Sachs, do you think Israel can realistically continue to exist much longer as a pariah state? Does the genocide in Gaza represent an extinction burst for the Zionist entity?
It certainly could, because Israel is almost a complete pariah right now. The only countries that support Israel's genocide in a direct, active way, because some do implicitly in Europe, but in a direct way, are the United States, Argentina under Milei, and then a handful of tiny countries, Nauru, Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, because the U.S., Micronesia, which has to vote with the U.S. Right. But basically, by my count, 95% of the world population live in countries that have demanded the implementation of international law, which is that Israel end its occupation and go back to the June 4, 1967 borders, and that a state of Palestine be established immediately. And this, to my mind, is vital for Israel's own survival, because as the question rightly points out, a genocidal pariah state will not survive. Israel, what it's doing right now, it's basically basing everything on the idea that the United States will save it. And the truth of the matter is the American people are aghast at what Israel is doing. And public opinion in the United States is right now running something like 2/3, 1/3 pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. And so politics for a while can stay the way it is right now for a variety of reasons, for big money, because of the evangelical Protestant belief in Book of Revelation, the rapture, all of that stuff. That's real, by the way. That's not a small part of Trump's own base, but it is a small minority of the United States people. And so Israel is gambling on something that is definitely not going to hold, because the American people are not wanting to be parties to genocide, even though our political class is complicit in genocide. So I think Israel is saved if oh, okay, I got a call coming. Oops.
Well, here's the thing. Israel is also, like, we're talking about polls, but like Israel has been polled and they very largely support genocide.
They're in a state of absolute, how to put it? It's profoundly psychological. I think actually curable by a lot of the population, because this is not where the Israeli population was even 25 years ago. But right now, if you follow the opinion polls, they strongly support this genocide. Yes. And that is absolutely grotesque, tragic and grotesque. In any event, the genocide needs to stop immediately. And the United States is basically the only country in the world that enables it right now. We're completely complicit in it.
We are. And I have a real great appreciation for your willingness to be so generous with your knowledge and your insights. And my unsolicited critique to my elder, which is you, is naivete can no longer be a valid reason for believing in a system and in a culture that has been so deeply committed to capitalism, to harm, etc. And it is someone of your brilliance, someone of your compassion and of your heart that is required to not only apply your knowledge, but apply your morals in a way that challenges a system that continues to exist in defiance of that morality. That is the U.S. and the American identity. And we have to change that. I agree. Pretending it's not that.
I agree with you. Give me time. I'm only 70, so I can still overcome my naivete.
Okay.
All right.
Check back in.
I promise, Amanda.
Check back in, Professor Sachs.
Very good.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, y'all. You know I don't play the whole politeness in the way of progress. You know I don't do that. All right? You know I don't do that. So I just had to, cause that's the thing. We gotta keep it a buck. You know, we have to keep it 1,000, or else what are we doing, right? If we're not keeping it 1,000, and that's why I get so discomfited with my fellow peers who do have knowledge and who do have wisdom and information, but are not willing to just call the spade, right? Because if we don't call the spade, we're getting hit over the head with the spade. That's what we're doing. So I feel so, but ultimately I want to thank our member of the SEAL squad who made that interview happen. Just so y'all know. Okay? That interview happened because a member of the SEAL squad, I said it is one of my goals to have Professor Jeffrey Sachs on the show, and they said, we're going to make it happen. My next goal is to have Chris Hedges on the show. Can we make it happen? Okay? Does anybody know Chris Hedges? I want him on the show. Okay? And I want to get Mossab Abu Toha on the show. I've got a list. Okay? I've got a list of goals. I want Anita Hill on the show, y'all. Can we get Anita Hill on the show? Can we get Anita Hill on the show? These are the things that I hope to make happen. I'm going to give us a little moment to have a little brain break, and then we're going to get into our Black Urate News. right, y'all. We are entering the third hour right here at Views from Amanda Land. Yeah. If you are watching us on Instagram, come on over to YouTube, Amanda Seals TV. And when you come in the chat, make sure that folks know that you just came from Instagram so that everybody can welcome you in. A Day in This Life by Crystal said, when you offered that critique, I yelled out your name and my kid jumped. Thank you. Listen, constructive criticism comes with love. You understand me? Like, that's why I push back so often when people are trying to provide me with criticism that is not coming from a place of love. I know what it feels like when criticism comes from a place of love, and it doesn't come from indictment. It doesn't come from indictment. It comes from, willing to share, hey, this right here is a thing. And then and then the other person is able to respond how they want to. I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is. If you're just joining us, you have decided to wake up on the right side of history. This is Views from Amanda Land. My name is Amanda Seals. We are here Monday. Sorry, we're not here on Mondays anymore. We're here on Wednesdays and at 10 a.m. Eastern. And you can show your love for the work that I'm doing by dropping some money in the Cash App or by dropping a super here on YouTube. We just had Jeffrey Sachs, and that was not whack. He taught us so much information about this nation. I feel so proud to come on this show and be loud about learning, loving, making idiots move their butts. I said move their butts. And we had Greg Stoker before. So if you're joining the show right now, make sure that you go on back and check out it from the top, because then you will not lack the knowledge. Woo, woo, woo. Someone in the chat said, this nigga. Yeah, baby, show your love. Drop some bread in the bucket. Okay, drop some bread in the bucket. I hope you're watching this with your teens. If you have not watched this with your teens, then bring them back to rewatch it with you. It is imperative that we create bridges of intergenerational information. Our young people have their own version of wisdom, okay? Our young people have their own version of wisdom. Professor Sachs is 70 years old and said to me, like, give me a chance to shift. So, that is so important. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask, but I know he had to go, was what have your students now, like, how do your students now show up differently than the students that you had like 20 years ago? And I had a really great interview with Professor Dr. Robin Kelly, who was one of my professors. He was my thesis advisor 20 years ago. Ooh, 20 years ago. He was my thesis advisor. Damn. But when you check out Small Doses episode with Dr. Kelly, Side Effects of African American Studies, he speaks to that question too. Another exercise I would love for any of you guys who are watching this to deploy, or to employ, I should say, is to make a list of the words that Dr. Sachs, Professor Sachs, Economist Sachs, make a list of the words in that interview that you didn't know. Because, honey child, there were some words that I was like, what? And I really didn't get a chance to ask him to expound upon the concept of moral imagination. And so I think that's actually going to be a part of our bonus question, moral imagination. So I really feel like that was an interesting concept that he brought to the fore. But, you know, some of the things that we just learned from that interview about the JFK peace speech. So I'm definitely going to look that up and look up the book that he wrote on that. Well, he wasn't in a rush. He only had 30 minutes, and he actually ended up spending an extra 15 minutes with us. So I honor that. When we get into our Patreon conversation after, I can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts on the interviews that we did today. But yes, perfidy was one of the words that I was like, oh, perfidy. Right? Profundity was another one of the words. So whenever we do these interviews, make sure to let that be a part of your practice, is writing down these words. Something that Greg Stoker said in his interview was that he's seeing these right-wing people, these MAGA rightists on the Twitters talking about things that they don't have the language for, but that they are actually talking about, like imperialism and empire. And I see it all the time with people who don't realize that they're talking about socialism, who don't realize that they're talking about the proletariat. They don't realize, and I realize this because I didn't have that language. Okay? Monica said, Amanda, you should be a songwriter. So I have actually released 4 albums. Yeah. Life Experience, Spandex Rhymes and Soul. Life Experience, Spandex Rhymes and Soul, Madam Monochrome, and Technicolor Lover. And then I had mixtapes in there. And I had a poetry album called Never a Dull Moment. And if you go on YouTube, you can look up some of my music. I really want to post a song that I did, but the guy in the video is someone I deeply dislike. So like, I don't want to post the video because I don't want to give him any shine. But the greatest song I've ever written is, in my opinion, a song called Man Child. And it was produced by the homie Ski, who Ski Beats produced. This is it, what? Cucini pouring from the sky, let's get rich, what? Yeah. So shout out to Ski Beats. Maybe I'll blur his face. That's a great idea, guys. Maybe I will blur his face, but I'll give you a little acapella glimpse of the song. This is a little break before we get into Black Current News. I just need a little break. Sometimes it's like news. I just need a little break. Stuck in his ways, walking with his chest out, knows what he ain't, but don't know what to be about. He understands that he could be better, that he could move mountains and be a go-getter. But he's a man-child in a promised land, and I can't hold his hand to make him see and make him comprehend that it's all his for the taking. And then I do a rap. Okay? And then I do a rap. Hangs with idiots and ex-cons, frauds and Mr. Me Too's. So, you want to check it out. Make sure you, go right here to YouTube and look up Man Child. But yes, I've had several lives, y'all. I had a whole industry career in the music industry. I put out albums, and ultimately the same reason I left the music industry was the same reason I eventually ended up leaving Hollywood, was because I realized I would have to give up my soul in order to achieve the level of success that was required to be considered successful, right? And I remember the inflection point for me that made me say, oh, this is not the world that you want to be in, was I was at the Rock the Bells concert and I was backstage, and all of a sudden everybody dropped to their feet. Everybody dropped, and there was all this yelling, and I thought that there had been gunshots or some threat of death, right? Everybody cowered to the ground, and me and my homegirl were standing there like, what is going on? Do you know what was actually happening? Do you know the reason why this was happening? It was because Mary J. Blige and Kendu, Swiss Beats, Alicia Keys, and Jay-Z and Beyonce were walking through. That's why. That is why everybody was being told to get down. And I said to myself, if this is what comes with success, then I don't want it. If this type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Debasement of folks, if this King's Landing type behavior is what comes with success, if this is what I should be aspiring to, then I have no desire to do that. And literally that day I decided I don't want to pursue being in music anymore. That day, that was it. And since then, you know, and then when I went to the television industry, I went there via comedy. And I will say to you guys, stand-up really felt very different than the industry. Stand-up felt more so like a meritocracy because you can't fake funny. And ultimately, no matter what beef people had with me for transitioning over to stand-up, or idolatry was the word, thank you. Whatever energy people had for me for coming into that space, I think ultimately it was yeah, but if I'm not funny, then I'm not going to be able to survive in the space. So what are you really worried about? You feel me? What are we really worried about? Because I got a lot of shade when I started doing stand-up. And it was, to me, nonsensical. If I'm not funny, what is the concern? Also, when people would be like, well, you just made it in stand-up because you're light-skinned and you're pretty. And let me make it abundantly clear that me being light-skinned has nothing to do with me being pretty. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. And I'm pretty according to certain versions, certain points of view, myself as well. I do believe that I am pretty. And so does my mama. But in stand-up, that doesn't help you. Being pretty is not a useful tool in stand-up. It actually works against you. So let me be very clear on that. It actually is what you are told on a regular basis. You are told you're too pretty to be funny. Okay? So there's that. That's not something I agree. That's something that I can tell you firsthand. Being pretty don't help in stand-up comedy. It don't at all. So, you know, I do believe that I'm now in a new phase of my life and my purpose on this earth, and that all these other phases were a part of that. You know, I started out as a child actor, and then I transitioned into a spoken word poet. So you can see my performances on Def Poetry Jam. And then I transitioned into a recording artist, and you can go listen to my music. I mean, I still get a check every month from CD Baby where someone has bought my music for $25. Kismet J, to answer your question, so they want ugly comedians. That's not the point. It's more so that comedy is oftentimes about self-deprecation. And essentially, when you are on stage being self-deprecating about yourself, but you are outwardly representing privilege, it is counteractive to the jokes. So people want to laugh at other people. And if you think about the comics that have been on stage that have done the numbers, oftentimes there is something very optically specific about them. Like Dave Chappelle is just an awkward guy, so there's funniness in that. Kevin Hart is a short nigga, so there's humor in that, right? Richard Pryor would just make these faces, but he also had a very particular face about him, right? So the funny ends up being enhanced by your appearance. So for me, I will say that when I was performing stand-up and I finally started using my face and my body in the jokes, it really just it enhanced my comedy because it took the attention away from my outward appearance. Also, I would not dress in like more feminine attire, which is ridiculous, but that's really what it was. My uniform for stand-up became a tracksuit. In the beginning, it was leggings and a loose top, and then it became a tracksuit, period. And the reality is that stand-up is, oftentimes a optically based engagement. And so if you're looking at someone that looks funny and they're funny, there's the combination. There is the combination. Therein lies the combination. So there's that. But I want to remind everybody that you can go to Amanda Land Exports and support the latest drop, which is the Fascists Are Not Your Friends drop. Fascists are not your friends. Fascists are not your friends. Fascists are not your friends. So you should name them. Name them. And we're also going to name some fascists. So we need to do that. You understand me? Now, I have an unreleased stand-up hour that I never put out. And I just haven't decided when I'm going to put it out. But I have a whole hour that still, by the way, it still exists. I mean, it's still relevant. And I recorded it at the Kennedy Center, like it's there. And yeah. Dawn, Dowdy Jen, you're late to class. This is why when you're late to class, you should be quiet, because we talked about it in the first hour, Jen. We talked about it with Greg Stoker, Jen. Jen just told on herself, y'all. If you late to class, don't tell on yourself. Don't tell on yourself. The special was recorded in the summer of, I don't remember time, 2023. And it is still relevant. So, maybe I'll put it out before the year is over on Patreon. I don't know. But, all right. Are we ready? If you're just joining us, make sure you go back and listen to the episode, because we had the incredible Greg Stoker on for 60-second headlines. And we also had Professor Jeffrey Sachs joining us. Incredible first day back. So glad to have you guys. And what's wild is that we've still been at we haven't gone lower than 550 all morning. And we've been here since 10 a.m. So I feel really special that you guys joined us. And, that you guys are rocking with us, because this is how we're going to be rocking moving forward. And I just need you all to understand the joy, or not joy is not the word, how much I appreciate you all understanding that doing the show one day a week gives me space that I need to continue to sow seeds. I'm working in my community now and doing more work there. I'm also trying to get Amanda Land Exports to be able to support me and to be able to be a place where you can buy my art. So you'd be able to buy art prints there. But all of this takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes brain space that I didn't need as much of when I was younger. I didn't need as much brain space. But here we are. It's 12:30, so we are about to get into some Black Urine news. Oh, and again, want to let everybody know, if you don't know, at the end of the show, we are starting an after show kickback on Patreon. So if you want to be a part of the after show kickback, where we talk about everything in the show and what's going on with the episode, and you want to have your opinions be shared with other members, listen, $5 to subscribe to Patreon. All right, $5. Let's get into our Black Urine news.
Black Urine news. Politics. Black Urine news. Pop culture. Black Urine news. Sports. Black Urine news. Justice.
All right, y'all, we are back here with some Black Urine news. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about the Sudan. We're going to be talking about Rwanda, and we're going to be talking about Kamala Kamala Harris. I'm saying it like that because I'm trying to rhyme with Rwanda, but Rwanda and Kamala. All right. Adrian, sports justice. All right. Welcome, Fatima. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. So let's get into our first story here. We're going to talk about the Sudan. All right. Let's talk about the Sudan. So I don't know if you all have been paying attention, but there's been a lot more conversations happening about the Sudan because as we are seeing the crisis of the famine that is taking place in Palestine, and it is a forced famine, it is a forced starvation, we must acknowledge that there has been a forced starvation going on in the Sudan as well. UNICEF reports more than 24.6 million people across Sudan, more than half of the population analyzed, are now experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity. I'm sorry, I just said insecurity. Insecurity. Okay. This includes 8.1 million in emergency conditions and at least 638,000 people in phase 5, which is catastrophe. And that is where we are seeing the people of Gaza. Okay. Phase 5 is at a point where even if they are given food, their organs and their bodily functions and systems have deteriorated to such lengths that the food could actually harm them. Now, in talking about the Sudan, one of the things that I think stops people in their tracks is the confusion around what is actually happening in Sudan. There seems to be quite a disconnect between why this war is happening and why it is causing food insecurity. And I want us to get deeper into that and talk about this because it is not as straightforward as what's going on in Gaza, but it does have the ability to be understood. Now, there's information that's going to guide you to where the RSF and the SAF come from, right? The RSF are the SAF is the Sudanese Armed Forces, and the RSF is the Rapid Support Forces. And they are basically helmed by two different people. One of the people that helms them is the current head of Sudan. The other is a military general that thought he was going to be co-head of Sudan and instead got sidelined and is now like, oh, F that. However, both of them are using military factions that are funded by outside actors to keep their country in a state of disarray and chaos that is 100% harming the people of the country in very deep ways. And we must acknowledge something very similar. Starvation is a tactic that is used to diminish the strength of the people physically and mentally and their ability to fight back. So it is by no stretch of coincidence that we are seeing a forced deprivation of starvation in Sudan. The forces that are at work are paid military. Now, if you want to get if you want to get some comparative analysis here, this is what is happening in the United States with ICE. They are building a paid military, a mercenary, to fight the people of the country. The people of the country are now the chattel. In Sudan, the people who are the countries that are funding the RSF and the SAF are quite interesting to note. So the RSF is funded by the UAE and Russia, namely. And the UAE is the source of they're the number one source of the gold being taken out of the Sudan. Now, we know that the motherland is filled with riches and resources, minerals, oil, animals. I mean, the myriad of ways that the motherland has been scraped dry is a long list. On the other side, you have the RSF. And when I say the other side, I'm going to clarify that. It's the SAF. The Sudanese armed forces are being funded by Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. But Amanda, why would Russia be on both sides? Because for some, the goal of Sudan and utilizing its resources are more tangible resources in the sense of minerals and things like this. However, all of these Arab countries are also vying for power, dominance over trade routes. And Sudan sits on the Red Sea. Now, we saw during the at the height of the Iran, basically like the Cold War with Iran, we talked about the Strait of Hormuz, right? We talked about the Strait of Hormuz and how this particular body of water was so important because it allows for trade routes for oil to get out of Iran. So when we're talking about reasons for war, we're not just talking about like physical minerals and labor, et cetera. We're also talking about the actual earth. Okay, we're talking about water and how these pathways allow for not only capitalism, but also power and dominance. Now, according to Horn, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, which is a nonprofit applied research and policy think tank based in Nairobi, Kenya, while the full implications of Russia's growing presence in Sudan remain uncertain, it could shift regional power dynamics, potentially affecting China's economic interests. And China has also been rumored to be funding the SAF. While Saudi Arabia and the UAE's geopolitical strategies and Iran's strategic ambitions in the Red Sea can also be affected. Tehran, capital of Iran, views the region as a critical front for countering Western and Gulf influence, expanding its maritime presence, while also leveraging the Houthis in Yemen. As we know, the Houthis are funded by Iran, to disrupt global trade and pressure its rivals. Now, we know that the Houthis have been disrupting global trade by storming and taking out ships in the Red Sea that are supporting Israel. The United Arab Emirates is looking to expand its military footprint in the Red Sea and Western Indian Ocean. This has also been linked to RSF support in Sudan via Chad, potentially implicating its regional ambitions. So when we talk about the motherland as it exists, we have to remember that this is still the biggest continent on the earth that has the most resources on the earth. It is still being seen as a seat of necessary wealth in order for these other places to be powerful. Thus, it becomes even more imperative that African nations see the strength in themselves. You understand what I'm saying? So here's an example. You're going to be like, Amanda, please. When Master P founded No Limit Records, he was selling albums outside of his trunk. Nah. Then Universal Records came to him and said, yo, we'll give you $1 million. We'll give you $1 million for a record deal and for co-ownership of No Limit Records. I'm a no limit soldier. I thought I told you. You don't want to go to war with a soldier. No limit truth. I thought I told you. Dun, 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 dun. Okay? And he didn't take the deal. He didn't take the deal because he said, if I'm doing something that got them willing to pay me $1 million, which, by the way, at that time, $1 million was incredible. If I'm doing something that allows them to pay me $1 million, then I know that I'm worth more than $1 million. Hootie-hoo! Whoa, holding it there. Watch my feet. I'm looking right here. But kid, bring that beat back. Drop the not shit so I can drop the true shit. NOLIMI to the T. True is who we. Now, side note, I interviewed Silk the Shocker one time, and I asked him, where do you feel like you rank on the list of rappers? And he said, I'm the greatest. That man ain't never rhymed on beat in his life. Okay, but I digress. The reason I am presenting this example is because I really feel like the nations of Africa, and I don't just mean like the leaders, I mean the people, so often I feel are being tricked into thinking that they're not worth more than the $1 million they're being offered for. And it's deeply disturbing. And the way that we have this interconnectivity of the internet means that we have to continue to push back against this narrative. We have to continue to break the continued narrative that, oh, it's Africa. Of course they're in trouble. What else is new? Of course they're in chaos. What else is new? Well, you know, they don't know how to handle money. I mean, they're so corrupt. When the reality is all of these folks is corrupt. All of them. So I'm encouraging you to go back and re-listen to what I've talked about, but also to do some more research on Sudan and what's going on in the Sudan. There is a film that is coming out called Sudan Remember Us. And it is dropping shortly. And oh man, I thought this was a higher resolution picture. It's gotten a lot of coverage at the festivals, and this is coming from Watermelon Pictures. Watermelon Pictures, the same folks that put out The Encampments. And we can watch a little trailer of the film right here.
ما تبكي خلي الوطن يبكي أنا حاسي بيه وحزين ينعى الحب جانا رافع بيت الدين الجثة بسرعة ظهرت بعد يومين طالب في سنة أولى مطروح ومضلوعين دخل الكلام الحوش دغنا الهوان الشين يا ناس كفانا سكوت ولا انتم مرتاحين الطيبة لها حدود الطيبة لها حدود الحي مصير يشوف الثورة في النيلين يا أبويا ما تبكي خلي الوطن يبكي أنا حاسي بيه وحزين يا طالع التاتر يا ماسك الدوشة يا أخويا وتمي يا داري بهمي أنا طالع الشارع ومؤمنك دمي ما تستبق دمي ولا عز أوطاني أحميك وتحميني ما أنت سوداني ولا ذات السوداني سوداني يا غالي يا أرض حرية تبقاك أرواحنا أملاكنا محمية ثورتنا مشروعة مركتنا سلمية
Now, if you're listening to the podcast, you can check out the lyrics were actually captioned on the screen. So you can come and check that out right here on YouTube, Amanda Seales TV. So the source of this film is Paris-based filmmaker Hind Medeb. In April 2019, she traveled to Sudan's capital, Khartoum. And the longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir had recently been overthrown after a 30-year regime marked by genocidal violence in Darfur. Medeb began filming with young activists. This is from the description. Began filming with young activists rallying for a citizens' government by staging sit-ins, making music, reciting poetry, and painting murals. Their hopes are expressed in signs that read, "Sudan free from tribalism and religious pluralism." The film Sudan Remember Us enshrines this moment, but also documents the descent into war that followed. Today, Sudan is engulfed in violence between internal factions in collusion with external arms suppliers driven to gain control over the country's wealth of minerals. The war has displaced more than 8 million people and killed over 14,000, but is largely ignored by international news. Sudan Remember Us is coming to select theaters across North America for a limited time, beginning this Friday, August 8th. And you can follow Sudan_Remember_Us and director at Hind Wonderland for more updates. So let's go to another country in South Africa who is really just embarrassing themselves. Okay? Let's talk about Rwanda. Y'all, Rwanda has decided, we want to get in on the cooning. We want to get in on the cooning. That's what they said. And so that's what they're doing. And it's really embarrassing. So this is the Rwanda confirmation that they will accept deported migrants from the United States. On Tuesday, a spokesperson for the Rwandan government, Yolande Makolo, acknowledged that they will receive 250 deported individuals. So this expands the U.S.'s presence from not just not just military bases, but to prisons. Okay? Rwanda is now the third African country after South Sudan. Remember, South Sudan became its own nation out of Sudan. The other country is Eswatini. And all three have struck a deal with the U.S. to accept non-citizen deportees. Makolo said in a statement, Rwanda has agreed with the United States to accept up to 250 migrants in part, because nearly every Rwandan family has experienced the hardships of displacement, and our societal values are founded on reintegration and rehabilitation. So this suggests that these folks will not be in a prison. They're just going to be dropped in Rwanda. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that don't make any daggone sense. Why are they not being deported to where they are from? No, what I believe is happening is that the United States, this is what I believe is happening. This is what I think is happening. Let me know if you agree with me or not. The United States had shipped all of its labor to China, like a vast majority of its labor to China. And China, though it was getting, it was using its money to build up its actual people. And so now that cheap labor that was existing in China doesn't exist in the same way. And of course, we know that the U.S. is in a tariff battle with China. And China is no longer, taking an L. At one point, China was down bad, but they not no more. So now the U.S. has to ship their labor to somewhere else. And we see that the U.S. is also not effing with India. And we know that India was also a huge source of cheap labor. So what I believe is happening is that they are making deals, trade deals and labor deals with these countries where they're going to build spaces for labor practice and have cheap labor in these countries. And they're going to be shipping over these deportees to start it, which is human trafficking, by the way. That is what I believe is happening. So y'all agree? Ultimately, it is slavery. If you send somebody to a country where they don't speak the language, where they don't have a home, where they don't have a wage, you are creating a scenario where their only goal, their only opportunity, their only option for survival is to be at the behest of the only opportunity that's being provided to them. Do you think they're going to give them a choice? No. No, they're not. So, and we saw that this has been talked about with Kenya. I don't know if they decided to do it. And we also saw that they did some BS deal with Rwanda and the Congo. They're reinventing slavery. Absolutely, Claire. They're reinventing slavery, and it's really a deep descent into just more diabolical practices. And we keep asking the question, where are the women going? Where are the women going, y'all? Where are the women going? The other thing, though, and I'm going to say this with the most positive outcome possible, with the interest of the most positive. Actually, you know what? I'll keep that for my PSA. I'll keep that for my PSA. Hold on. So the last story in our Black Hero News today. Everyone's favorite Mamala. Y'all, she done wrote a book, y'all. Kamala Harris wrote a book. Now, this is not her first book. And I don't even know if she actually wrote it, because a lot of times folks be like, this is my book, but they didn't actually write it. And if you were wondering, like, where's Kamala right now? That's where Kamala is. She was writing a book. Kamala then wrote a book called 107 Days. And this book is about her 107-day run for the presidency. And in this book, she basically, talks about that crazy process that was zany, this zany process. It literally is described as, for the first time, and with, wait, hold on. Let me do it. Let me give it a little vibe. For the first time, nah, that's not the one.
For the first time. For the first time, and with surprising, revealing insights, Kamala Harris tells the story of one of the wildest and most consequential presidential campaigns in American history. What?
Why does everything in America have to be a Fast and Furious film? Why? Thank you, Adrian. Kamala stay wanting my money, even on these YouTube apps. She don't know if I wasn't one of the Black women on the Zoom call. Like, I just think it's wild. Okay, so here's my criticisms. First of all, with everything going on right now, you ran for president. Then you've just been MIA, and people are like, that's fine because she needs to rest. Black women need to rest. I did an interview yesterday where I had an epiphany, and I want to bring it here today. My sisters who feel like they are exhausted. A number of you have said that you feel exhausted because you did what you were supposed to do in voting for Kamala Harris. And what I would argue is that the reason why you're so exhausted is because you've been being told that you needed to serve at the Democrats' mercy in order to have any chance of a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this nation. And the Democrats have exhausted your allegiance to them. And you have been working and working and working like a hamster on a wheel for a party that has consistently worked not to advance any of your needs. I was you. I was a Black woman that was proud to be a Democrat. Like, that's what we're supposed to be, right? However, here we are. And as Jeffrey Sachs just said, economically at least, the Democrats and the Republicans are not the same. So when we talk about Black women being exhausted, we also have to extend that to the Black women who are organizing, not just for voting rights, but the Black women who are also organizing on the ground to fill the gaps that legislation is not filling to serve their communities. And the Democrats are not doing the work to fill those gaps either. Because even if you are putting stuff on the table or you don't have the majority, if you are working at the behest of an oligarchy and of lobbyists, then you don't even have time or resources to be bothered with whipping votes for your constituency. All your energy has to go in considering them the priority first. So when I hear Black women talk about, I'm exhausted, you're exhausted because you weren't being useful, you were being used. They weren't even utilizing the positive, the forthright, the will, the strength that Black women continue to exist in. No, they were utilizing your base as the numbers and data to legitimize their purpose in continuing establishment. Oh, well, if we got the Blacks, we good. See, look. And then they did it again with Kamala. And now here, when we are seeing incredible cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, when we are seeing all these people losing their jobs, when we're seeing that job growth in the United States has not only stalled, but is on the descent, when we see that 30-year-olds in the United States cannot own their homes, when we see this continued push for multiple streams of income, you should not need multiple streams of income to live. She comes out with a book. They are stripping people off of the streets in her state. This was a time when she could have come back as a public servant and not as a politician that she has been for the duration of her career. And it's not to say that politicians are not sometimes willing to listen to the work of organizers. And yes, they do have to do that sometimes because they can't just completely 100% ignore, but they get so much support for just doing that little pittance. We need public servants, not politicians. And as Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Jeffrey Sachs said, we are watching performance. You came out with a book? You know why I bought my book back from Simon & Schuster? You know why I'm not putting my book out? There's a number of reasons. You know what one of the reasons why I'm not putting my memoir out right now is? Because it's tone deaf to do so. Because we are in crisis. There is an entire genocide that she was an accomplice to that has now gotten to such a fever pitch that we are seeing starvation every single day, that the entire world, aside from maybe a few handful of nations, are now agreeing is a wrap. This is a problem. This has gotten too far. And you put out a book? This was the time? Yeah, watch. I find it, I'm very angry about this. I will continue to say what I said, which is that if Kamala Harris wanted to be of any real use to the people of the United States, the people of the United States, then she needed to move outside of the framework that she has been built and framed and molded in. This is not someone who came from organizing in the community. She was organizing with a Jewish Zionist group that lost its nonprofit status in Canada because it has been acknowledged as a supporter of genocide. So if she was the real one and the savior that so many of you all are willing to plant your flag in, I would suggest for her to show it, to demonstrate it by being in the streets with y'all, with us. And the streets, by the way, is a multiple usage term, right? I'm in the educational streets now. Folks are in the streets in their communities. Some folks are literally in the streets marching. Some folks are in the streets because they're in their gardens creating co-op food sources. Other folks are in the streets because they're trading people on firearms. That's what I mean by the streets. Being immersed with the people. I don't know how this woman convinced you that she is immersed with the people, but to put out a book at this time of crisis is incredibly tone deaf. And for the book to be about 107 days about your nonsensical run for office, it's not like it's going to be honest. I mean, it's just not. It's not going to be honest. Journalist Mark Halpern revealed on Friday that apparently Kamala has been warned that if her new book about the election mentions Joe Biden's cognitive decline or tries to blame him for the loss to Trump, that they are going to put out apparently his wife is like notoriously vindictive. So basically like Biden and the rest of his camp are going to put out a bunch of stories about her and the foibles that took place during this 107 days. So apparently she not gonna keep it a buck, or else they gonna keep it a buck. This constant quest for bread. Do you know how much money these folks make? Like she signed to CAA. Like, I know all y'all was really hyped when Michelle Obama put out her book and went on a book tour. And I was like, what? I ain't putting out nothing unless it's teaching right now. I ain't putting out nothing unless it's teaching. I don't know what that book is going to teach us. What is it going to teach us? And I wonder how long people will continue to support the concept of politics and politicians as a effort for saving you. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. We are now in the 4th hour. I have been on here. No, sorry. We're now in the 3rd hour. I've been on here since 10 a.m., y'all. And so have you. So shout out everybody who's been with us, spending our days, our mornings, Wednesdays together. I appreciate you. We're about to get into our last segment. And before we do that, we got to find out who's with us. Hey, 3rd hour of the show. Here we go. 3rd hour of the show. And you know what I want to know. Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Who's going to be telling us where they're watching from? If you wasn't here at the start, tell me where you are. Amanda Lander's here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. All right, now, 3rd hour. Who's come through to see us through the end of the day? New Orleans, Queens, New York, Fort Worth, Durham, North Carolina. Rachel is still rocking. We also got Italy still rocking with us. Cincinnati, Brazil. We got the Bay, Detroit, New Jersey, Jackson, Mississippi, Newark, New Jersey, Oakland, California, Ibiza, Spain. That's exactly how I say it. Lima, Peru. Hell's Kitchen is still hanging in. from Toronto, Carolina, Miami, Florida, DFW, Uganda is in the house. We got Cape Town Airport on the way to the Caymans. Say hi to the sea turtles for me. We got Lome, Togo. I don't think we've ever had someone from Togo. You know I've been to Togo. We got Arlington, VA, Cape Town, South Africa. Okay, y'all, the motherland is in the building. Long Beach, California, Bay Area, Cleveland is still rocking with us. We got San Antonio, Tejas, Rochester, New York, Stillwater, Oklahoma. We got Harlem in the building. I said Harlem in the building. Leominster, Massachusetts, and North Minneapolis. We've also got Fanchulo, El Norte, Viva Napoli. Hey! Puerto Rico, epa! Amanda Lander is here to learn. Thank you for telling me where you're watching from. In the third hour, yeah. Reminder to everybody that you can support the show by dropping a Cash App donation, or you can also support the show by dropping a super right here on YouTube. All right, I will announce and shout out the people who dropped the supers at the end of the show. But did we ever have anybody from Togo before? Okay, no, we did not. We have never had somebody from Togo before. Yay! We got to add another pin to the map, y'all. We got to add another pin to the map. All right, Togo. Yes, y'all. I went to Togo in 2017. I went to Togo and Ghana. There is a line of beauty and soap products called Alafia. And my homeboy, Tabby Benet, who's no longer my homeboy because he was supposed to look after my cat and didn't do it. And I ended up having to leave Orlando to come home because he had left Lando, rest in peace, that's another conversation. But nonetheless, Tabby was cool with the brother from Togo who actually started Alafia. And so I went out to Togo and got to actually see the way that they were making their products. And Alafia is like super duper 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 fair trade. Like super duper 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 fair trade. Do I really call them out every time? Never forget. I just ran out of Alafia products also. So if anyone wants to tell Alafia to send me some stuff, please do. What's up? But I really feel like it was so enriching for me to get to see the real process. And I got to do the washing of the shea nuts with the folks. And yes, put them in the pocket, Tabby. Put them in the pocket. And I also got to see how they stir the shea butter. And when I arrived, like all the sisters was out there like, like, yo, I started crying. I was like, Africa. So shout out to that memory. At some point, I will have to edit together my trip there so I can put it on my Patreon so you guys can actually check it out, because just a time, such a time. Speaking of a time, it is time for us to get into our critical thinking exercise of the week. But first, I want to remind you that you can get your Fascists Are Not Your Friend merch available right now at Amandaland Exports.
The latest drop at Amandaland Exports may look like it's a game, but reminds us that fascism certainly is not. Get your Fascists Are Not Your Friends tees, stickers, and more at amandalandexports.com.
So with this drop, I really decided that I wanted to make sure that I gave you all a lot of different vibes. Okay. So, it's not just the pins. Okay. So I'm going to show you the different stuff that is available. And for the first time, I am doing t-shirts. I know. And I'm only doing the t-shirts because I can do it in a way that feels like I can manage it. Now, the t-shirts are almost sold out because I'm only selling 100. And I'm only selling 100 because I don't have the manpower to package more than that. And I want to make sure that I have as few errors as possible. So I'm actually curious to see where we are at with the t-shirts. Let's see. Hold on. Let's just see. Okay. If we go here and we go here, let's see, guys, where are we at? This is taking longer than I wanted it to. I thought this was going to be pretty intuitive, but no, now I'm having to do a whole lot of other stuff. Okay. It's fine. Okay, t-shirts. Let's see where we're at. So we have 17 smalls, 23 mediums, 25 larges, 16 XLs, 7 2XLs, 9 3XLs, and 10 4XLs available. Are we going to sell out of these? I want to know how I only have 30 people who want a fascist are not your friends lapel pin? Squeeze me? How is that even possible? The fascists are not your friend lapel pins are the flyest. Now, we also have the fascists are not your friends bonus bundle, which gets you the lapel pin, the bumper sticker, and the magnet. Okay? And I think that's a great deal because you're getting the bonus bundle for, how much is the bonus bundle? Let's see. The bonus bundle is $26. $26. The pin itself is $20. The magnet by itself is $6. The bumper sticker is $7. So you get all of this. And wait, your mom gave you a side eye? Why? Fascists aren't her friends. We need to have your mom on the show. This is the Fascists Are Not Your Friends tee. You can get the Fascists Are Not Your Friends sticker pack. And the Fascists Are Not Your Friends sticker pack is also a fun little, I didn't have the money for the big thing, but the little thing also was a vibe. And the sticker pack is $10. $10, you get 4 stickers. And I there you go. Yes, tomorrow is payday. And you can also get you the magnets, put them all over, etc. And this is the lapel pin that I'm rocking right here. So, do we have to, like, if I had time, so something I want to do is I want to do a views from Amanda Land word deck. I still be having time to do any of these things, but it's going to happen at some point. And now it is time for us to get into our last segment of the day. Are y'all ready to use your brains? Yeah! Well, let's do it. Amanda Land. Let's get it. Why wasn't it playing? I'm going to play that again. Amanda Land. Let's get it. It's like missing the other side of the audio. Critical. thinking. Exercise it. Your brain, that is. That was odd. Let me add that to my notes of things I got to fix. Things I got to fix. Critical thinking intro. All right, today's critical thinking today's critical thinking topic is, today's critical thinking topic is all about gerrymandering. Boo. Gerrymandering. So let's first start with something real basic. What is gerrymandering? What is gerrymandering? Okay, wait, real quick. So I know that you guys are saying the bumper sticker, like you wouldn't put it on your car, but it's more so just the fact that it's a bigger sticker. So like I wouldn't put it on my car, but I may put it on a notebook, right? Or I may put it on a suitcase, or I may put it on, what's it called? A clipboard, or I may put it, you understand what I'm saying? So it's more so that it's just a bigger sticker. That's really what the point of it is. What is gerrymandering? All right. Okay, so we've got Jamil Ramji. Gerrymandering is drawing district lines in a way that helps a specific party or group get more seats than they would with a fair map. So districts are drawn and approved. And the way districts are drawn is determined by the people in power, essentially, because they get to determine what is constituting a district. Now, we have seen in recent years that there have been Supreme Court cases that address this, right? So in Alabama, there were districts drawn that had disregarded an entire district of black voters. Now, when we talk about Democrats and Republicans and the connection of Democrats to black voters, there has been a consensus concept that Democrats are highly represented by black voters. So when they're drawing districts, they largely draw districts based on the population of black voters while aligning that as a population of Democrat voters. So the black voters end up representing largely in part the Democrat ability to win. Now, when we're looking at gerrymandering as it exists right now, we have seen it going haywire. And we know that there is a supposed, because I don't know if it's really going to happen, but we know that there is a midterm election that is happening in next year, and all seats in the House are up for re-election on a federal level. Now, when we're saying, okay, why are they doing this now? This connects also to the Voting Rights Act. Now, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was created to help ensure that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was not hindered by racism. That the Civil Rights Act in Reconstruction, which is the 14th Amendment, that would not be hindered by racism. Because ultimately, of course, it was being hindered by racism. We had seen that black people were dying, were being killed, and were also not being allowed to vote, even though their rights, according to the 14th Amendment, state that they should be. So the Voting Rights Act of 1965 said, how can we, on a federal level, keep the states honest? And one of the biggest things that they put in place was pre-clearance. So essentially, the way that the maps were drawn was how they were drawn. And then, in order to redraw a map, you had to get pre-clearance from the federal government that says, this is not racist. In 2003, I believe it was, 2003, they threw out pre-clearance. They gutted the Voting Rights Act. And now the Supreme Court is about to completely do away with the Voting Rights Act in its next session, according to what a number of journalists are saying and legal analysts. But today we're going to talk about gerrymandering because we have seen a really big story pop out this week with Texas, where Texas decided that it was going to redraw their districts. Before we get into it, I want to show you an example of how gerrymandering works that can maybe help even give you some more insight into understanding it. So if we're looking at this image that Caltech put together, it shows, hold on, let me get this off the stage. It shows on the far left, 50 precincts. 60% are blue, 40% are red. So let's just say this is a city, okay? Let's just say this is a district. This is a district, and let's just say this is a city, and it has 50 precincts. 60% of them are blue, 40% of them are red. Gerrymandering becomes, how do we draw the districts of these precincts in a way that can more greatly ensure that a certain party wins? In the middle, you'll see an effort to draw 5 equal districts along lines that are somewhat, they're fair because they're equal. And they are also representative of the actual percentages that exist in the precincts as a whole. Now, when it comes to the last one, that is an example of gerrymandering, because what is being done here is an effort to draw the precincts in a way that specifically prioritizes Republicans over Democrats, but in a way that is completely illogical and doesn't actually represent the way that people are living in these precincts. It is surgical precision tactics, as Carmen said, as Madre Tres Morena Tres says. So let's talk about Texas, because they said the LAR part out loud when they had Texas State Representative Brian Harrison come on TV talking. Hold on. Where's he at? Did I not? Bear with me, y'all. Bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. I'm trying to find it. Did I not bring this over? Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. Let me get the file and let me bring it over. Let me get the file and let me bring it over. Because I need y'all to hear how he was talking. Because he was just talking so loose. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that for me be just so bold. They just so bold with it. They yeah, and so what? What you gonna do about it? Ain't nothing you ain't gonna do about it. Nope. We doing what we want to do. And I wish, they basically be like, I wish it would. That's the energy. The energy is very, I wish it would. And this is also not the first. Now, I saw one of the influencers I follow on the Instagram say, Texas fired the first shot. And I want to point out that this is not Texas firing the first shot. Texas been fired shots. Texas has already fired shots. And I'll tell you them.
State's Constitution and the Constitution of the great state of Texas absolutely allows us to undergo this type of redistricting effort. So we're doing something that's completely legal, it's completely constitutional, and I'm doing everything I can in my power as an elected member of the state of Texas to make sure that the state of Texas does everything in its power to make sure that Republicans hold on to a majority in the United States Congress. It's as simple as that. That's completely legal. It's totally permissible. The United States Supreme Court has said so on multiple occasions. We should have, quite frankly, we should have done this during the regular session and had this in the rearview mirror by now.
So
the fact that they're so blatantly saying, yeah, we should be able to draw districts in a way that makes us win is nuts. And for those of you all who are constantly arguing with me about voting, this is what I'm talking about. This right here, that's a state representative. We're not even talking about the federal level. That's a state representative. So then the Democrats of Texas, when this was getting voted on, said, oh, for real? And they bounced. And they prevented a quorum. Can someone tell me the definition of a quorum? Someone tell me the definition of a quorum. What is a quorum? What is a quorum? Anybody? Tell me the definition of a quorum and and I will tell you how it relates to this. What is a quorum? Anybody? Tell me, what is a quorum? The definition of a quorum, Q-U-O-R-U-M? A quorum. Can anybody tell me the definition of quorum? All right, Catherine Winland 6939 says, a quorum is the minimum number of members of an assembly or society that must be present at any of its meetings to make the proceedings of that meeting valid. And in this case, a quorum is the amount of members of the legislative body that have to be present to make a vote valid. So when you saw, Governor Hot Wheels Abbott sitting up there talking about, oh, I'm going to arrest the Democrats who left the state of Texas, that's not possible. You're not going to be able to do that. However, they did leave the state of Texas to prevent quorum on this vote. Because even though they are outnumbered, if they're not physically there, the vote is illegitimate. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is not the first shot that Texas is firing is because Texas has been making these moves. They literally at this point do not have any Democrats at the head of any of their committees on the local or state level. This is by choice. This is by design. And Tennessee is not far behind. Tennessee has done something very, very similar. Tennessee passed a law that said basically if you go against anything that the Republicans, if you vote against or they were trying to pass a law that said, like, if you vote against anything that Donald Trump wants to do that the Tennessee House is supporting, that you are going to be considered in contempt. What? When we talk about voting being rigged, what we're talking about is the fact that you are placing your vote in fairness in a system that is actively unfair. So to suggest to people that their only method of moving out of that system or of making changes to that system is to vote is an unrealistic method. And for Democrats to constantly be telling folks that you just need to vote, you just need to vote, you just need to vote, knowing that this is going on is really problematic. Now, I'm really, really happy to see these Texas Democrats banding together in this way because it's not what we have seen on the federal level. And I have spoken to voting rights activists who will tell you behind the scenes that they have been alerting the Democrats on the federal level to the Voting Rights Act and to the way that gerrymandering is existing in their respective states, and they don't care. The Democrats don't care. Now, here's the flip side. Here's the Uno reverse of this. The Uno reverse is that you have some Republicans that are going to lose their seat in their districts because of the gerrymandering that took place and the way that their seats have flipped, the way that their manderisms have flipped. So now they're like, oh, we need to get rid of gerrymandering. We need to get rid of gerrymandering. There was an effort presented by Democrats previously to get rid of gerrymandering, and y'all voted against it. So here we are. Now the question becomes, well, if the Republicans are doing this in their Republican-led states, because remember, Texas is led by a Republican governor, then could states with Democratic governors feasibly do the same?
States Constitution and the
Hold on.
Now, a lot of governors out there are saying, well, they're going to increase the gerrymander of their states in order to counter what Texas has done. California has already said what they're going to do. They're going to put a plan in place that'll wipe out half a dozen Republican seats, but it'll only be triggered if Texas goes through with their plan. It's, it's kind of like, a dead man switch or something like that. Can Illinois do something like that?
It's possible. And I've said everything's on the table. I mean, we got to fight fire with fire. They've frankly tossed the rule book out, and they're just acting in an unconstitutional fashion. And what we're going to have to do is whatever it takes to preserve democracy.
Okay, I'm not going to let that applause go because we all know that democracy has not been here for a long time. Is democracy in the room? No. We also know that, yes, Illinois, but also Chicago is like super segregated because of redlining, etc. The concept of democracy, I just want to point out, is not about just voting. The concept of democracy is folks having the equal ability to participate in their legislative body. So when we have limitations on access to college and higher education, when we have limitations on access to food and good air, when we have limitations to fair trials, when we have heightened numbers of arrests, when we have heightened numbers of incarceration in certain groups, that is also impaired democracy. It's not just when we see in Georgia that they're creating rules about voting that we know are going to affect large swaths of the population. Like, oh, you have to have a certain kind of ID, and then you have to go and re-register, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is a part of democracy. Democracy isn't just having the right to vote. Democracy is being capable of being a part of your society in an egalitarianist way with the folks who are, with everyone in the society, actually. And to suggest that it's a valid course of action to undermine the Voting Rights Act based on the nonsensical concept that its effort to enforce anti-discrimination is actually being discriminatory. Why would it be created in the first place? Why would it be created in the first place? So your critical thinking exercise that I want to ask you guys to answer right now is, where do you feel like the effort towards voting should go at this point? You see these governors, you see these people on a state level talking about voting. What do you think this is all about? What do you think the effort right now to take away voting rights is really about? And it's important to always consider things beyond what's just immediately obvious. So let's go. What do we think this is really about? The effort to, on a federal level, gut voting rights. Monique says she thinks this is about re-electing Trump. I think there's something absolutely valid to that. I'm also just fascinated by kind of just like the what's the word I'm looking for? The pretense of trying to like act like it's being done in a legitimate way when we know that it's not. Brandon says moving to dictatorship. I mean, is that the same as re-electing Trump? Desmosis says it's about stealing 2026. Terrarium says they are very bold in their red caps and upside down flag t-shirts on. Cassie says cut off access to public goods. Now, this is an interesting note right here. So you guys are talking a lot about fascism and Trump, etc. But we also know that on a state level, that is where the votes come to make demands of the federal government, of FEMA, taxes, of infrastructure support, etc. So when we talk about cut off access to public goods, that also can be applied within the state context, because if you live in a state, you're not going to the federal government to make sure that funding of your state's HBCUs is happening. Like, yes, they give some money, but it's your state that's really allocating that funding, allocating the funding for childcare, allocating the funding for school lunch programs, etc. So the cutoff access to public goods is really interesting, because this is mimicking what the federal government is doing in terms of cutting off access to public goods. Now, Madre Tres Morena Tres says she feels it may be manufacturing a civil war. Now, I will say this. When we were talking to Greg Stoker earlier, and he was talking about how ICE is effectively like an army that's being created outside of the current judicial limitations, I believe that is effectively going to be a civil war, because you're going to literally have a regular man-made army fighting the regular common man in the United States. Where does that go? Now, Raekwon Scott, 127, said, "It simply put is meant to make us lose trust in feeling like we are empowered together." And the Zeta 7 says, "It's rewriting before our people had rights. It's rewriting history to before our people had rights to be educated and understand or have access to human rights, the same as our white counterparts." I agree with all of those things. I agree with all of those concepts. And, I think all of that is happening in the same time. Lee Mabry says in a very dystopian but really real statement, "Fascism is the easiest path forward to destroying the environment and creating prisoners, aka legal slavery." So what we have here is a scenario that is very real and being impacted and imparted, that has a history and that has a future. And we are in the middle of its present. And if at the end of the day, one of its goals is to convince us that we cannot band together, then we know that one of our goals is to do exactly the opposite of that. And that, my friends, is our critical thinking exercise of the week, which brings us to our bonus question.
Bonus question. Bonus question. Bonus question. Bonus question. BONUSQUESTION.
So this week's bonus question that I want you to drop your answer in the comments to is it over for Israel? Is it over? Now, let's take a look at some of the things that have been happening this week in regard to Israel. Because when you see it all in the same place, it really gives you an interesting perspective on what is simultaneously happening. Now, again, all of these things are not necessarily like gonna happen, but the fact that they're even being considered is worth noting. So, first of all, we have Brazil announces sanctions against Israel at a UN conference, which I'm assuming is the one that Professor Sachs was at. Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira announced measures the Brazilian government is going to adopt against Israel. We also have German football team says they won't sign an Israeli player after fan outrage. Now look at this. This is all over the place, right? So we got some that's dealing with like the more pop culture elements of it all, but then there's also the legislative elements. The Royal Opera pulls out of Israel production after staff revolt. I want to point out to you guys that literally 2 years ago, none of this would ever happen. 4 years ago, Nick Cannon was being forced to kiss the ring for asking about the Rothschilds on his podcast. And his manager and his agent, who are both Jewish, and who I now understand are both Zionists, because it's not mutually exclusive, really made him have to bow down and be asked to be allowed to come back into the fold. Yeah. Then we have leading Israeli author David Grossman calls Gaza war a genocide. So this is a world-renowned Israeli writer who talks about how just coming to the realization that Israel's committing genocide I did not mean to say genocide was extremely painful. To be fair, though, it is also committing genocide because it is harming Jewish people with its actions. He says he now has a moral obligation to speak up. I feel an inner urgency to do the right thing, and now is the time to do it. By the way, if you're not saying that Israel prior to now was a problem, then you're not really saying much. Now, the J Street president. So the president of J Street, a liberal pro-Israeli Jewish group based in the U.S., has issued a statement accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. Jeremy Ben-Ami, who founded the group and lobby in 2007, said that he was persuaded rationally by legal and scholarly arguments that international courts will one day find that Israel has broken the International Genocide Convention. Irish president is urging the UN to intervene militarily, and cite destruction of an entire people. And he was talking about the UN, what's it called? UN measure number 7, which basically says, like, we're going to drop troops in there. So your bonus question is it over for Izzy? After the show, drop it in the comments and let me know why. Let me know your thoughts. Converse in the comments. All the things. All the things. PSA. We had a great show today, guys. This is our first show back. Are you happy? I'm happy. I was kind of nervous. I was nervous, but I'm so happy to be back with you guys. And I'm just really, I'm really honored to be seen by you all as a source of information and of someone with an opinion worth even hearing out. I want to encourage you, before we head out into our day, to remember that expansion doesn't just take time when it's happening with a business or a country, etc., which is not really positive, but expansion of the mind also takes time. And it's also, going to give you stretch marks in your brain. It's also shocking. So, when you replant a plant in a bigger pot, sometimes the plant can literally go into shock if the pot is too big. Because it's literally like, oh my gosh, well, there's so much soil. How do I manage this? So many of us are having a similar experience because there's so many lies. How do I manage this? There's so much information. How do I manage this? There's so much truth. How do I manage this? So I want to encourage you that feeling is not a reflection of stupidity. That feeling is not a reflection of incapability or ineptness. That feeling is the response to being overcome. And the response to that response is to affirm yourself that this is what I need to know and to understand that it is possible. I remember my ex, he wanted to have this big life with this big house and, all these big things, but he didn't want to do anything differently in his life. And I remember telling him, you're going to have to expand. If you want to bring in bigger things, then you have to be able to be bigger. And that doesn't just mean, you know, you got to have more time. That may mean you need to get more spiritual. That may mean you need to talk to different kinds of people. Expansion to engage in what we are dealing with is going to require more than just internal. It's also external. And I am honored to have this show be a part of the external portion of your necessary expansion into this next phase of human existence.
PSA.
We had a good show, y'all. We had a good show. Thank y'all, everybody, for rocking with us. We was here for 4 hours. Can't nobody say I don't give y'all nothing. All right? Can't nobody say I don't give y'all nothing. I want to thank everybody who gave me a little something for doing this little show. This big show. I'm not going to call it a little show. This big show. Shout out to everybody who donated a super. You are so appreciated. Shout out to everybody who's going to rewatch and drop in the comments, because that also helps with the algorithm. We will be back next Wednesday right here at 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure to follow me on Instagram to make sure that you know who our guests are going to be. I'd also like to ask that when you see clips from the show posted, whether it's to Instagram or to YouTube Shorts, that you share those clips, whether it's in your group chats or you share them to your Instagram, to your stories, etc. Spread the word about Views from Amanda Land so we can continue to grow the folks who are here and wanting to learn more about the world we're in so that they can change the world we're in. Okay? So I appreciate you once again. And also want to remind you that we have a whole new situation going down after the show, where people are going to be able to join us over. All of my Patreon folks are going to be able to join me and each other in an after show kickback. So if you would like to be a part of the after show kickback, all you got to do is subscribe to my Patreon, which is $5. That's it. It's a quick little $5. So I hope to see you all there. I'll be posting the link and we'll go live at 2:00. You guys, it's so wonderful to be back. Like I was kind of, like not really sure how it would go, but it exceeded expectations. And I hope that it exceeded expectations for y'all too. So we'll be back next Wednesday right here at Views from Amanda Land. 30 seconds of stillness. Amanda.